Guys, it totally happened. I mean, y you can't make it up. You can, but it doesn't matter because I'm trying to find my happy medium. I wanted my background the other way, but whatever. Hold on. Try that one. Whatever. Anyways, okay, so I just discovered 11 hours ago, Nick Shirley put out another video. Now, I'm not sure what number video this. I didn't put any lip gloss on. Hold on. I gotta put some lip gloss on. Anyways, yeah, that'll help. Basically, I'm guessing he's explaining more fraud or telling us about more fraud because as they peel back the layers, I mean, even now, I mean, I don't know why anybody would think that any Minnesotan has any confidence in our governing authorities at this moment. It sounds really bad to say, but our state governor and the rest are, I mean, the a lot of the problem is with our governments, the Twin Cities, and they're ruining it for the whole state. They really are. Let's just face it. These communities, these big cities are ruining it for the entire state. And trust me, there's a lot more little cities than there are big cities. And without the little cities, they couldn't even have big cities. I don't know, whatever. It's just really super annoying. That video you seen was actually I believe taking them around the roundabout a few times because or to distract them away from I guess the rest of the convoy had gone forward. And so if you look closely at that video, you can see a school bus. I'm like, maybe they're just protecting the children from these psychopaths. But I do know that a lot of locals actually are coming out and you know, telling these protesters to GTFO. They want ICE to do their jobs, which we all do, because if you think about it, if ICE is in your neighborhood, that means potentially there's a potential for a pedophile or some other what is it, part one crime? Listen, we want to make sure that we don't have murderers and rapists and the like in the neighborhood, and the more that ICE is coming around to try to catch a specific person or whatever, and they keep getting called out, it sets them back. And here's the thing: is if you're living in that neighborhood and you got jerks outing the ICE officers or whatever it is, whoever they are, you got people that don't even live in your neighborhood, protesters, who want this illegal activity here. Homeowners are starting to come out of their houses and telling these protesters, leave them alone, stop it, get out of here, not on my block. I mean, because they're literally stopping, and these protesters have commandeered an entire freaking intersection and are asking residents for their ID, and it's like, what? No, who are you? You got no authority around here. It's very strange, you guys. And now that they started doing all this other weird stuff, they're just seeing how far that they can literally push us. This won't become, what is it, Portland. This will not become Portland. Okay? It's not going to happen. Guaranteed. I ain't gonna let that happen. I'll tell you that right now. I will make sure the law gets changed. Whatever law there is. I don't think we need to change any laws, though. Oddly enough, because the law says all this stuff, like you can't do this stuff, and yet they are allowing it to happen. So I'm not really sure what that's about. But I hear they're starting to cooperate. The local authorities are starting to cooperate with immigration officials. And I've got so much to say about that, but I don't know if I should, because, a federal agent, if they're working out of their city, I think that possibly per contract, I could be wrong, may have, I don't know. They might be like, you can only do a certain thing in a certain city for so long, or, usually it's about 3 weeks and they rotate people, 3 weeks and they rotate, it's that kind of stuff every, or a month or so. And so for Tom Homan to say, oh yeah, we're 700 Border Patrol agents home or whatever. Okay. They were probably waiting to go home anyways. They're probably the first ones there, first ones out. Guess what? That's what I'm saying. The more cooperation that they're going to get from the local governments, the faster this thing's going to go. That's how I see it. Anyways, so last night was the Minnesota caucuses. I went. I did. I was so happy to see so many people in my precinct actually show up. And I just, I'm really glad that they did, because I got to know some of my neighbors. They actually live like way far from me at the other end of the precinct, which is kind of funny. And that's okay. That's okay too. We got to share stories and talk, and our senator came by, and then also we got a chance to meet Michelle Tafoya. She came by our precinct and gave her a little speech. She was buying drinks for everybody at the local tavern afterwards. And I don't know if anybody went. I did not, because, well, I had to work. I had to work the next day, and it had been a long day. So it was good. It was a good time. Caucuses, a good turnout. I'll tell you, I could complain about some things, but I'm not going to. You know why? Because, all I can say is that, they really work hard in your local caucuses, and those are all volunteers, you guys. They don't get paid for that. They do not get paid. So everybody does that is volunteers. And so, if you get a chance, try to volunteer. I mean, I try to, but then I get pissed off because we won't talk about why I get pissed off. But I got mad. I was like, you know what? Seriously, it's common sense should really rule, but it just doesn't in Minnesota anymore. It just doesn't. Anyway, so we are totally going to watch the new Nick Shirley thing. I you know what? I actually have. Hold on. Let me remove this. A video I'll play in the background. I actually had another video because I was working on this painting behind me some more. And some other stuff too, but I gotta work on the videos. I just don't, in a couple of weeks, I'm gonna have a couple of weeks off, and it'll be really nice to work on some more in-depth fun video stuffies with the paintings. Now, anyways, let's get to it, huh? Let's do it. Exposing, and let me see if I pull this up. Here we go. Here's this. I had something else up. I thought that I was going to use that, but not. All right, we're going to use the audio tab too. And here we go. Why is it thinking? Stop thinking. Why is it not loading? I'm going to be so mad if it doesn't all the way.
Do you think people will be going to prison for the fraud that's been committed in these states?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, you guys. I'm just going to let you listen, because he starts talking about Congress members going to jail. What does Nick know? He's been down over there up in Washington, D.C. What does he know? I think they're putting a real big file together on Miss Silhan, Timmy Waltz, hopefully his sidekick, Peggy Flanagan, and then Keith Ellison, that ding dong. Oh, that guy. He's out there spewing. I can't even watch him. He's such a... Oh, jeepers. I'm going to start saying mean things. Let's not do that.
So to get that correct, in a place like California and Minnesota, illegal migrants were getting Medicaid for completely free.
Yes, there are billions of dollars of fraud that go out to criminal organizations. Foreign adversaries have specialized in committing different types of Medicare fraud.
And what have you guys seen so far from a state like Minnesota, where a politician could be imprisoned. This is a super important interview between me and Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill of the HHS, which stands for Health and Human Services. They're one of the departments within the federal government that are hoping to crack down on this fraud, and they've even gone to expose it in locations like Minnesota and in California as well. In this video, we'll be speaking about the fraud that's been taking place specifically in areas like Minnesota, as money from the federal government has gone to the state and it has been defrauded from the American taxpayer. We'll be speaking about that and potential prosecutions that will be taking place within the fraudsters and the politicians who have been enabling this fraud to happen. And right now on my website at shirleydefense.com, we have released new hoodies, support independent journalism, as we know that mainstream media has just completely failed the American people. So go ahead and show people where you stand. You can go ahead and get it in black, and you can also go ahead and get it in gray as well. We still have the quality leering t-shirts and hoodies available as well. Remember, that's at shirleydefense.com. The link is also in the description down below. And now let's get into the interview. We're here in Washington, D.C. We're with Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill. Lots of fraud is happening here in the United States. You guys at the HHS, Health and Human Services, have been cracking down on this fraud. When I first originally posted the YouTube video, I just thought it was going to be a YouTube video. I post it. Next day, I didn't know who you were. I see your face pop up on X, and you say you're freezing over $185 million to childcare in Minnesota. What has this crackdown on fraud been like for you guys?
Taxpayers spend a lot of money on healthcare and welfare in America. They're very generous. And this department administers a lot of it, including Medicaid and childcare, and has a responsibility for ensuring there's integrity. The status quo was just a trust that states would make sure that none of it was spent on fraud. Status quo is obviously not good enough. So we've been asserting all of our responsibilities and enforcing that states are really doing their jobs. And that's been escalating over the past few months, partly thanks to you.
And so I go ahead and post this video. I go to the daycares, I show the locations, and then you guys freeze the funding. What made you guys have enough sufficient evidence that fraud was happening to the point where you guys decided to freeze childcare?
So we're absolutely committed to funding all the deserving recipients that actually fit into the definition of the program, and none of the fraud. What we did that week was we just asked for receipts. We said, states, when you're submitting us a bill, just give us a little proof, give us some evidence that it's real and legitimate. And you might have seen last week, 5 states actually sued us and said, no, we don't want to answer your questions. We don't want to send receipts. We don't want to show evidence. So far, court said to freeze that part of it, the demand for receipts, which we're going to comply with the court while we appeal, but we're moving forward in other ways. We're going to be sure that no money goes to fraud.
So has a single daycare in Minnesota been able to prove that they are a legitimate business to receive the funding that you guys froze?
We're not talking to the so-called daycares directly. We are asking the state to submit proof, and we are still waiting for proof.
So to this point, so far, the state has not provided any proof of legitimacy for these daycares.
Not only that, they're generally refusing to answer questions. So for one example,
they don't want to help them with their investigation because they know they're all screwed. They know they all did something wrong. I might put this on like 1.5, just like to go faster with it.
On the Medicaid side, Dr. Oz sent Governor Walz a letter at the beginning of December saying, please just send us a corrective action plan for how you're going to change your policies and stop fraud on Medicaid. The state waited to the last day of December and submitted a comical 5-page joke of a corrective action plan. And we wrote back and said, that's obviously not good enough.
Right.
We need a real corrective action plan. They then asked for a hearing. Of course, they'll get their hearing. They're really dragging their feet on reform on Medicaid. On childcare, it's broadly similar. In fact, the Biden HHS believe.
I'm going to guess it's because these people don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do their job because they haven't done their job for such a long time. That's my guess. I could be wrong, but I'm probably not. Just saying.
Believe it or not, put in regulations making it harder for states to enforce proof of like attendance records for childcare. We're repealing those regulations and demanding hard evidence from states on childcare.
It's kind of strange that the governor, for instance, Tim Walton, his government, essentially inside Minnesota, they will not even comply with the federal government when you guys are simply just asking We just want to know where these funds are going. They couldn't come up with a single plan or anything for you guys.
That's right. They really seem to not really want us to ask questions. So I was in Minneapolis last week. I met with the Medicaid officials. Of course, they said all the right things. They said they care about fraud. Then I met with some whistleblowers, some legislators, some auditors, some former employees. The message I got there was very different. It was the instructions in the state government are not to ask questions, not to really do site visits, especially not surprise site visits. State literally decided not to go knock on these doors. Luckily, you did.
Yeah, because when I did my videos, I did not know what to expect. I had David the man with me in that video. He said, Nick, I've never seen a single child at any of these daycares. And so what I did is I just went and knocked on the daycares to see what was happening. For instance, there was one called Mako Childcare. They had received over $1 million. And so I went and tried to open the door to go talk to whoever was in the reception. It was closed. Windows were blacked out. Doorbell didn't work. And above me, it said open 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. They obviously weren't a legitimate business. And so it's been interesting to see the backlash from people. And now to see that Tim Walz and his government will not even comply with the federal government.
We're going to insist. We are doing investigations. We are doing prosecutions. We are ramping up the pressure. We are exploring every bit of legal authority that we have to ensure that there's no fraud in Minnesota and other states. In some cases, we have to give the state notice, and then we can crack down. We're doing that. We're giving the notice. We're sending the proper letters. We have more reforms that we'll be announcing in the next week. But it's really our responsibility as stewards of taxpayer money to do the work that the state is refusing to do.
And how come it had gotten to the point where there wasn't that much oversight as to where the money was getting spent? Because from my understanding is you guys give the money to the state and then they then spend the money.
Yes.
And distribute the money. How come there wasn't much oversight in a place like Minnesota?
So I think there's the status.
Hold on. You know what? I gotta say this because this actually came to mind today, you guys. Where am I? Hold on. Let me make myself bigger here. So what I think, you guys, I wonder if they weren't just, let me put it this way. There was $8 billion of an of surplus, but there's $8 billion of fraud. I started thinking about that, and that's that they found so far. I mean, our surplus, I don't even know what ours went up to. It was like 13, but it was a lot. And we had a lot of surplus, and we were like, what the heck? And so it's very interesting to know that. And then they spent that on top of it, even though it was surplus, then they spent that on top of it. So, and we still don't know. I mean, they said it goes into all these programs. Again, programs, they programmed it out. And then they put all these new, our senator was just talking about it, that they put all these new regulations on schools and these new requirements on schools, but no way to fund them, and so that's going to lean heavy on the taxpayer again, because property taxes will go up to fund these things because there'll be a school referendum. It's a vicious cycle, you guys. So I just find it very interesting the amount that we're finding missing so far, and the amount of our surplus that we had was it last year or the year before. And so it's kind of like, interesting. Were they testing the waters to see? I mean, I just don't know. They were able to get rid of it all though, and they've been having surpluses a lot I almost want to go back and look at the years in which Minnesota had a surplus and what they've done with it every single time. Oh man, that would be a lot of digging, wouldn't it? Oh, it'd be good though. Anyways, okay, let's get back to it. Sorry. I had to say something interesting.
So assumption was state officials are elected or appointed by their own taxpayers. A lot of these programs are state programs. States are supposed to be in charge of that. And the federal government is supposed to have a little bit of program integrity, but it's really been considered a state responsibility. And really that's kind of the way the American system has worked. Like one of the strengths of our social capital in America is high trust, transparency, open books, data available to the public, processes that everyone can see and follow, rules that are clear to everyone. That's broken down from time to time in American history. We've had like political machines in big cities, often involving like a unassimilated immigrant group that gets kind of co-opted by a political party or a faction of a political party and ends up with a whole complicated but stable system of like public money being steered into fraud and voting blocks like cooperating with the fraud and voting for certain politicians. And it really looks like we have exactly that situation in Minnesota. And it's been obviously going on for a few years.
It's been going on for a long time. I had originally went to Minnesota in June to make a video about the demographic shift within the Somali population, how Christian churches were turning into mosques, and people started telling me about the fraud. I even had people set up for me to interview. And when it came down to the interview, they all backed out because they were too afraid to talk about the fraud. And so when 89% of the fraud that has been charged and people have been found guilty in Minnesota have been by Somalians, the Minnesotans were afraid to speak out against the fraud. And I think that's kind of why it was able to happen for so long, because we saw what happened. Tim Walty started calling me a white supremacist on live TV for talking about the fraud. But at the end of the day, do you think that the politicians were able to then use, for instance, the Somalians in this case, to then create all the fraud and to be scared to call it out for what it is?
Yeah, I do. It seems like people have built whole careers, whole lifestyles around a completely fake part of the economy. Their whole way of life would crumble if people ask questions. So one thing that's striking about your videos, it's not just that you knocked on the door and they didn't have a lot of kids in their so-called daycare. It's also how angry and hostile they were. They really did not, want to answer any questions.
And do you feel like the federal government had taken fraud serious to the point before I uploaded that video? Or do you think, how come you think from my video, there's such a big ripple effect across the nation?
We were starting to focus on Minnesota on the Medicaid side in November. But you definitely showed that Minnesota was a particularly bad area on childcare as well as Medicaid. So you made a big difference.
So essentially you guys give that fund to the states and then you just have trust in the states that they're going to distribute that money.
Well, the classic model that the US government's operated on in general is like pay and chase. Like when the state asks for money, you just send it and maybe investigate later if there's accusations. But it's hard to claw money back. The minute we send it to Minnesota, Minnesota sends it to these largely fake grantees. It's probably overseas within a few days. That's going to be impossible to get back. So while it's good that we're doing investigations and prosecutions and holding everyone accountable we can, the bigger savings are going to come from just not sending money out the door in the first place until we're sure that the states have a handle on the situation, are not corrupted, and are sending it to real people who actually deserve it.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are doing something very common, a lot of common sense to say, we want the proof.
Smart.
But now these states are suing you guys. You have states,
Right.
Is it California, New York, Illinois, Minnesota, and Colorado?
That's right.
Are all suing you guys.
Yeah, all 5 of those states sued us. All we were asking for was a little bit of evidence. We were still sending out the money after they sent the evidence, but all we did was say, send us evidence, then we'll send you the money. Instead of sending the evidence, either they didn't have it or they didn't want to share it or it was fake or whatever. They sued us instead. They sued us basically to say, don't even ask questions. It's none of your business. Just give us the money.
And they keep doing it.
And that's what one judge in New York agreed with them on. Of course, we're fighting back in court and pursuing all of our other authorities to ensure that no money goes to fraud in the first place.
So it's obvious that these states have been enabling fraud. They freak out when you guys tell them.
Well, that's how it looks. That's how it looks.
I'll say allegedly. It's allegedly proof that allegedly they're committing lots of fraud inside of these states.
Yeah.
And they get very upset with you guys for just asking for a proof of legitimacy when it comes down to showing that the money is being spent well. How can people inside of these states have trust that when they pay their taxes to the state and federal government, how can they have trust that their tax dollars are going to go to benefiting the United States?
So what the other thing too is Steve Simon, our Secretary of State, he's not even giving up the voter data stuff to the feds, which I believe has been asked. He's not giving us any of our records. And that kind of sucks because we want them to have that information. And yet he's just going against what it is that Minnesota wants. It makes you ask, makes you wonder. Ask the question: why is he doing it? Who's he protecting? Why is he isn't protecting me? He's making it harder for them to discover the fraud. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Not at all. I mean, this is treasonous stuff, you guys. It truly is. We have all been victimized, the entire United States. Anyway.
Yeah. So for their federal taxes, they can count on us to do everything we can to not ship money out the door if it's going to fraud, to ensure that it's going to the people that the program was actually designed for, which is a lot of working families that struggle to afford healthcare without Medicaid and struggle to afford childcare without federal support. That's what Congress designed the programs for. That's who we're going to ensure the money goes to. But they also need to hold their state officials accountable for their role in this. We are doing everything we can federally, across this department, as well as obviously other departments, to ensure that every single taxpayer dollar at the federal level is spent the way it's intended to.
Do you think people will be going to prison for the fraud that's been committed in these states?
I think so.
No.
Yeah.
How long do you think it'll take to see somebody go to prison?
Prosecutions often take a long time, and that's not my area of expertise. But I would just say prosecutions are great, but we're also like, that's about fraud in the past. We're also totally committed to preventing fraud in the
Hillary
future.
Clinton
And what have
never
you guys
went.
seen so far from a state like Minnesota where
This
a politician could be
never gonna happen.
imprisoned?
Nothing.
So
Nothing's
I was in
gonna
Minnesota last Wednesday. I met with a lot of these officials. Some of them are new, some of them are old. If any of them have committed actual crimes as opposed to mere incompetence, then, our Inspector General office is looking into that, as well as on the provider side. Some of the former state officials we met with in Minnesota said site visits are not even a regular part of fighting fraud. They just trust. So we went to a site. It's an old cannery, supposedly on paper, housed more than 300 Medicaid providers.
Okay, you guys, this is the Griggs building, okay? This building used to be, back when I was a kid, back then, there used to be like a wholesale place. It used to have wholesalers that used to sell goods there. It was pretty cool, and it was a pretty cool place. So, but it's been decades since I've been inside there, and I've seen it change over the years. And then I couldn't believe, I didn't know when it changed from a merchant's to all of a sudden it just like one time it was closed off and sealed up. And so I don't know who actually goes inside there or if people are living in there. It's possible that they're living in there as, houses or little, apartments. Who knows? We don't know. I don't know. That's what that kind of hustle does do. So I'm curious to see if there's any type of construction that was done inside for plumbing. You know what I mean? For a building like that. I don't know.
During the Walz administration in this one building. So we drove up, we got out of the car, we were standing on the sidewalk looking around. There were no kids around, by the way. We got a lot of hostility from the people that were kind of lurking.
The state of
Alongside
Minnesota
the
is
building.
also in part
One
of that
particular
building.
person saw
There
us,
used to be.
assumed we were feds, which we were, started honking angrily, gave us the finger. And then as we drove away, this woman followed us for like 10 minutes, like observing us, checking us out, seeing what we were doing. It was really like we were being driven, there were no weapons brandished, but really it was like we were being driven away from this site because we were going to ask questions. And that's why states need to do site visits. They need to go to these places, make sure they're real,
They
and
don't
not just
know.
trust or like, turn a blind eye.
Yeah, so I did that. I kind of caught him red-handed because I just showed up to
Yes,
locations.
that's right.
On a normal weekday.
Yes.
And there was nobody inside any of the buildings. I found a building with over 14 Medicare providers. And what would be the point? You found one with 300
Yeah.
in the past.
Yeah.
What would be the point of a building having 14 of essentially the same Medicare providers or healthcare providers?
Well, medical office buildings are a thing. In theory, you could have a building that has multiple providers in it, but the size of the building has to be big enough to hold, all those things. Obviously, what we both found, especially you, was it doesn't even make logical sense that many providers would be in a building of that size, plus the hostility. If you read something on paper, wow, it seems a little odd that many companies would be in one building. Well, just go visit.
Oh my God. I wonder if any of those are considered clinics because they're starting to charge those facility fees and stuff like that at different buildings. And, this is the new insurance hustle where they're charging, like if you're getting a surgery and that surgeon uses a different building than what your insurance does. Well, they got a facility fee for actually using their operating room. And then they didn't used to do that. It used to be like, I thought they used to be in hospitals that they used to do that, but now they have more, I guess. I don't know if they made it more designer or what. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure how it's working now, but I do know that the medical field, I think we're going to find that a lot of this fraud is being done through these insurance companies. Our medical insurance companies. Basically, insurance is getting our money, the regular American regular Americans' money on house insurance, car insurance, medical insurance, dental insurance, eye care insurance. Just every kind of insurance you can imagine there is, right? It's fear, you guys. They get paid on our fear. It's our fear. That's how the insurance companies get paid. Yes. That's how I believe.
Go find them. Which is what you did. Yeah.
So with the state doing these visits?
No, usually not.
Hell
They're just
no.
cutting the check.
Even as a matter of policy, the
They
former
work
officials
from
told me
home
we don't really do
still.
site visits, especially not surprise
We
site
don't.
visits. So yeah, they were just cutting the check.
And these checks aren't just $1 million there, $10 million. millions of dollars. How deep do you think the fraud?
Why is nobody asking, are state workers required to come into work full time for their jobs? You know what the answer is, guys? It's a big fat no. Nope. Only 50% of the time. Yep. 50% of the time. Sickening.
Fraud is in a state like Minnesota.
Every week that goes by, it looks deeper and bigger, and like a bigger part of the Minnesota budget, a bigger part of the Minnesota economy, frankly. Who knows how deep it'll go? I think we've just seen the tip of the iceberg so far.
And going back to the point of the states suing you guys, what plan are they implementing on their own to not let fraud happen?
Well, they're all paying lip service to fighting fraud, but they're also minimizing, especially those 5 states, they're minimizing how bad it probably is.
Right.
And the fact that they don't want to show receipts or evidence or invoices suggests that they're hiding something. Otherwise, why would they sue? That's how I would take the fact that they sued.
It seems like they've just been enabling the fraud to happen for years and years. And they've attacked, they're using children, they're using immigrants as like political pawns to receive these millions of dollars. They're having adult daycares. They're even using autistic children to receive funding. They're using adult daycares and assisted livings, healthcare, and all these immigrants that a lot of them are naturalized citizens of the United States. They're using them to go out and get the money. And then literally there's not a need for 10 daycares within a mile radius. But if you drive around Minneapolis, it's very likely you're going to find these daycares popping up anywhere. And so when it comes down to like actually cracking down on the fraud, for instance, Quality Learning Center, they had 90 violations. And they were continuing to receive, I believe it was $1.9 million. Do you think by simply asking for proof of legitimacy in the future, which these states are now suing you guys for asking for, do you think that will help stop the fraud?
So you notice a lot of this fraud seems to be in areas that don't involve a license. So like daycare, there's no license to revoke or even inspect. A lot of these non-emergency transportation services, there seems to be a lot of fraud in that. That also doesn't involve a specific medical license. I think that is an area that people that want to do fraud tend to go into these sort of higher risk welfare and Medicaid areas. And that's also where we're focused on cracking down. So the reforms we have done on Medicaid in Minnesota, we're literally imposing a penalty of hundreds of millions of dollars a quarter on their Medicaid because that's how much fraud there is.
And real quick, break the sponsor of this video, Opus Clip. What used to just be an AI editor has now become the most powerful AI growth tool for creators and businesses. Over 10 million creators and businesses have started using Opus Clip. It's helped them gain over.
Did he just basically say the longer they freaking prolong this, the longer that they prolong not fighting them in discovery, the more they're going to charge them? The more they're going to charge me? Motherfucker. Oh my God. We can't get him out of office soon enough. America, help us, please. Oh my God.
Over 60 billion views. It's super simple to use. All you do is you upload a YouTube video or upload a video into Opus Clip, and it'll come out tons of viral videos for you to then choose from. I even had my friend start using Opus, and he had just around 100 followers, and within a few videos, he was able to get a video to 30,000 views. And Opus Clip just came out their new AI editor 3.0 that comes with smarter auto framing, better virality scoring, and new captions. I personally love Opus because it helps me reformat my content for all platforms, whether that be Facebook, TikTok. You'll get 1 week free and 3 months at 50% off. All you have to do is go to the link in the description of this video or the pinned comment down below and use code Nick Shirley. And now let's get back into the interview. How much money goes to a state like Minnesota every year from the federal government?
Hundreds of millions of dollars. And so 185 million specifically on childcare to Minnesota, Medicaid in the billions.
Something that kind of worries me in New York City, they have universal childcare for children between the age of 2 to 3. Zorman Dami just announced. We just learned that the fraud in Minnesota, a lot of it has been committed with using children to receive all this money. It should be concerning when a politician runs on the idea of giving free childcare, giving free healthcare to individuals. Is it really realistic that that money is going to be spent correctly based off what we've seen so far?
People are right to be skeptical and right to ask questions, including about brand new programs. Obviously, a lot of the children in the Minnesota situation weren't even real children. They didn't even really exist, right? Real children wouldn't go into buildings like this. Fake children that only exist on paper can go in.
Fake kids now? Oh my God. Well, I mean, I had heard that, but I just thought that they're just going to screw people over by stealing kids' or using their children's social security numbers for all this crap. Oh man.
Go anywhere. And so that would be a concern about a new program in New York as well.
Yeah, because it makes me question. And then I actually questioned them, and then they came back to me on a post on X saying like they literally questioned me for asking.
The initiative extends mainly to 2-year-olds, but intellectually you may be eligible. So you got to say your kid's retarded? What did we just learn about childcare across the country? It's a great way to create fraud and launder money. Caution here. Okay.
And the question about, oh, shouldn't we be concerned that all this fraud just happened in Minnesota? Now you guys are talking about childcare. And the Governor Hochul, her team came back at me and tweeted at me for questioning and being concerned about millions of dollars and billions of dollars actually for childcare inside of New York City, inside of New York, for instance.
It's always interesting when people don't want you to ask questions. What are they hiding? What are they afraid of? What are they hiding that they know about? What are they hiding that they suspect and don't want to know about? That's always a fair response when people ask you to, turn off the camera, stop asking questions, go somewhere else.
A lot of people have wondered, if I want to open a daycare, how hard would it be for me to open up a daycare? Or how easy was it to open up a daycare before people knew about fraud?
It should be hard, frankly. Daycares are entrusted with children who are very vulnerable. It should be hard to open up a daycare. It should require a lot of organization and talent and honesty and transparent contracts and qualified people. It should be hard.
And how hard would it be for someone to open up a daycare in a place like Minnesota?
Well, it's obviously very, very easy because we've seen that even fake daycares can open up there. There's obviously not a lot of diligence going into vetting whether they're real or whether they're good. If there's no diligence, if there's no way to prove that they're real, how can we prove that they're good?
One of these daycares had been closed down and then it got reopened the next day underneath a new name.
Right. That's something that site visits would probably catch. And if you're just trusting paperwork without verifying, then that kind of fraud is easy to do.
Yeah, because it really is unbelievable to think that somebody can receive millions of dollars and then there's absolutely no oversight. There's no surprise visits. Some of these daycares have BMWs outside, Range Rovers outside, and we know that they were spending money on luxurious vacations, honeymoons. And yet, if you question it, you're the bad person. You're the villain.
That's right. If the state required attendance records for these daycares, it might be easy to see if the kids are real. And in fact, the Biden administration limited their ability to ask for attendance records more than once a year. That's a really bad pro-fraud policy that we're getting rid of. Attendance records are some kind of evidence that the kids are real and that they're actually coming and they're only going to this daycare and not sort of being spread around among 10 different daycares in order to get 10 times the money from the taxpayers.
We haven't even gotten into the fact that they've got charter schools here, you guys. There's charter schools, and we don't even know what the frick they're teaching these kids there. I don't. I'm curious. Oh my God, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. I don't even know how. I don't even know how we're gonna carry on. You know what? I think we just need to gut the whole thing, gut the whole government, the whole process, every program, everything. 0 programs. Start from scratch.
You bring up the Biden administration. Was it easy to commit fraud underneath them?
Yes, it was. It does not seem to have been a focus. And a lot of the regulations they put in place were really making it harder for states to fight fraud.
What were they doing to combat fraud or to enable fraud to happen?
They were limiting the ability of states for both childcare and Medicaid to demand records from providers. So even states that wanted to fight fraud, which some do, had a harder time because of the Biden HHS rules.
Why would an administration do that to people who are paying taxes? Why would they make it easy for somebody to commit fraud? Like why was the person before you accepting those sort of policies?
Well, in some cases imposing these policies, actually creating these regulations, going through the Administrative Procedures Act to make them part of the law. I couldn't speculate on her motives, but it makes no sense to me.
And are you guys looking into the people before you guys who enabled this to happen? Like, do you feel like now, like Trump's been in office for a year? Have you been here for a year now?
I started in June.
Yeah. Do you feel like now you're kind of having to go back on the work of what other people did in the past to try and de-web or get rid of all the knots that they created?
Yeah. In general, we're trying to reduce regulation and make sure government is not standing in the way of innovation or transparency. And sometimes that means undoing stuff that the previous administration did.
I know you got some smart individuals here that know a lot about the fraud, and people are so interested in fraud because it is so deep and so large. So we want to bring on one of your guys here to kind of explain more about the fraud happening.
Let's do it.
Thanks for coming on. We won't disclose your name because it turns out talking about fraud is very dangerous. I've learned firsthand. You've seen a lot of fraud happening specifically with Medicaid and what happened with Biden, what they were doing. In what ways was the Biden administration failing to combat fraud? Or what ways were they enabling it to happen?
I think you're exactly right when you're talking about enabling versus simply being incompetent with going after fraud. What we saw here when we came in during the turn of administrations is that the Biden administration had taken active steps over their 4 years in office to enable fraud to occur in the Medicaid program. Things as egregious as putting forth regulations and finalizing them that limited the ability of states to verify eligibility more than once a year. When we came into office, congressional Republicans in the administration worked to repeal that rule, saving over $100 billion over the next 10 years. The Biden administration undertook, and knowingly, in terms of what the consequences would be, major actions to limit states' abilities to cut back on waste, fraud, and abuse in the program. It is unconscionable, some of the policies that they were pursuing. And as soon as the Trump administration came in office, we saw a pattern of policies that were pursued across the child care programs, across the Medicaid program, that expanded opportunity for fraudsters to take advantage of the Medicaid program, taking money directly from vulnerable Americans who were supposed to be receiving these benefits and taking that money for themselves.
So what ways were they enabling the fraud?
So limiting the ability of states to verify eligibility, completely disregarding signals of fraud, such as significant increases in certain spending categories, and also encouraging states to undertake expansions of the Medicaid program into service categories that are traditionally things that you would not associate with the Medicaid program, or things that most Americans would not label as critical services for the most vulnerable Americans. And so you see what happened in Minnesota, the categories of services where we're seeing the highest rates of fraud, the things you saw out on the streets, such as non-emergency medical transport, autism services, where people with a high school education are being reimbursed as if they're medical providers. These are the service categories where we've seen drastic increases of spending over the last couple of years, and are not the core Medicaid services that traditionally we believe the Medicaid program was supposed to be focused on. And so when we're talking about Medicaid fraud, a lot of it is in services that most Americans probably wouldn't even expect that their taxpayer dollars are funding.
Yeah, for instance, with welfare, a piece of that nobody really thought about was the non-emergency medical transportation companies. In Medicaid, what are some of the fraud that some people would not even think about?
For instance, one thing we've seen in states such as New York are family members of beneficiaries being able to enroll as home health care aides and get paid for services that they're providing. And generally, the bar that we're seeing at which a beneficiary becomes eligible to have a family member be reimbursed for services they're providing is very low. Traditionally, these type of home health care services are reserved for people where multiple activities of daily living are things that they're unable to fulfill. They're unable to bathe themselves. They're unable to feed themselves. Now we're seeing people be able to qualify for home health care services where they may say, I may not be able to, perform my own financial services for myself. And they're able to qualify. And in many cases, a family member could fulfill that service for them. It provides, extensive opportunity for people to gain access to services, and sometimes enriching their own family during the same time. That's one egregious example. We've seen significant increases in New York in that service category. It's led to the fastest growing career field in New York over the past couple of years has been home health care aides.
So if you help your grandmother with her groceries, that's great. Should the taxpayers pay you to do that? Not necessarily.
So people are able to use their grandparents as pawns to collect money from the government.
Yes, and you'll see, I was in New York last weekend, there will be advertisements on the subway telling people about this. You can also go online, sites like Reddit. Oftentimes people will provide extremely detailed guides of how to begin to defraud these programs. And I think that's something you see in Minnesota as well. There are many resources that people offer online where they walk people through step by step how to defraud the government. And the really surprising thing is before this administration came in, not only were people, not actively pursuing these type of fraud operations where fraud was proliferating, but actually taking steps to make it harder for individual states and the federal government to intervene and stop the flow of money. So they would tell states, you don't have to provide a certain information. And the federal government then had no visibility into what was occurring in these states. They would, specifically prohibit states from sharing certain information. It's truly absurd when you look at the pattern of allowing fraud to occur. And a lot of people have been calling this out for years, but only now are people really taking it seriously. I think another thing to highlight that has really been a shift, began with the Department of Government Efficiency effort that began towards the start of this administration. We still have several individuals who hold, expertise in technology, in data. And I think bringing that into the fraud fighting effort and combining, policy changes with advanced capabilities when it comes to leveraging data has really supercharged our fraud fighting efforts in the Deputy Secretary.
Sir, it doesn't matter. None of it's going to matter. You can bring all those people just to prove it, I suppose, but they're not going to stop until you guys come in there and physically take them out. I'm just saying. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Has been leading a lot of that work.
Actually, let me say, we are hiring. We are hiring data scientists. We are hiring AI experts. We are hiring software engineers. We are hiring tech people to make healthcare better, to make research better, definitely to fight fraud. And so
go apply. If you
we
guys
want more of
know
those
how
people.
to do this, you know what?
And one thing to talk about in particular on the data side, Medicaid is a place where we really do not have the
Experience
data
counts.
we need at the current moment to fight fraud on the beneficiary side. If you ask me right now who is enrolled in Medicaid in Minnesota, I cannot answer that question. I could tell you probably 3 months ago an approximation of all the individuals who are on Medicaid, but we do not have real-time information for who's enrolled in Medicaid. Additionally, on the provider side, we do not have a list of every Medicaid provider in the state of Minnesota. The state holds that information, and the state, as of now, has not turned over that information to us when we requested it. That makes it exceptionally difficult for us at a federal level to use all the resources that we have in order to fight fraud.
There should be a list of bad providers, suspicious providers, providers that have been disqualified from other programs, so that we can stop sending them money.
Yeah, because it's almost unbelievable to think like how inefficient or how the government, especially state governments, were making it so people like you couldn't actually do your job to ensure that people's taxes are going towards something that's going to benefit an American citizen and not potentially be used for fraud. Because it's been proven that 3 to 7% of all tax dollars go towards fraud. Elon Musk, he came in, showed what could happen when you expose fraud. Yep. And he also showed the side effects of what happens when you do expose fraud. They came after him.
He did. He created this chaos with Doge. He started with some exposure, and look at it. It's rampant. And the whole fucking world's ripping. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. But the whole world's ripping us off.
It's businesses. And I've seen it firsthand too, as far as people being upset at me for exposing fraud.
In every country.
When at the end of the day, fraud is fraud.
In every country.
And then now you're seeing it kind of become a left and right issue.
You know what I'm saying? Or we can blame.
Would you say it's fair to say that the majority of this fraud does happen inside Democrat?
I'm just gonna say it like this, you guys. We got to blame ourselves for letting it go on this long. We take on some of that responsibility. We fucked up. We weren't keeping watch of these people. Well, we kind of knew, but we just kind of let it go. What do they call it? Cognitive dissonance. You know, we knew in the back of our mind something didn't seem right. We just don't speak up. Or, you know what? We sell ourselves short with our wisdom and, you know, our understanding of how things work. So I'm just saying, if you
10 states.
There's fraud in all states.
Some responsibility that
every state has issues when it comes to healthcare fraud. Some states are willing to work with us more as it pertains to fraud. For instance, under the last administration, under Governor Youngkin, the state of Virginia expressed to us an openness to complying with additional payment verifications, ensuring that every dollar is going to a legitimate service. However, you know, in states such as Minnesota, we are requesting corrective action plans. We are asking them to provide us with information. And oftentimes states will feign a willingness to comply, and we don't get the information. We don't get the action.
That's right. Fighting fraud is not a partisan issue. Democratic taxpayers don't want to be funding fraud any more than Republican taxpayers.
No, the innocent.
However, I would say fraud does seem to be part of the business model for some political operations and some political machines.
Yeah.
And that seems to be really hard to shut down. But luckily, you exposed it.
I'll show you guys something. So on the state of Minnesota website, you can go in and see, for instance, where some of the money has gone. And for some of these NGOs, I looked at it, and
so many victims.
Some of the most expensive ones that have received the most money since 2001 to 2025, over $724 million has been paid. And on some of these other records, it shows the name of the person. However, on these ones, when it says who the payees, it says mass to protect, not public data. Meanwhile, $85 million, $122 million, in total is $724 million over the course of a few years. Do you think it's fair to think that all that money went to fraud?
Yeah.
Like they won't disclose the name of the NGO who's receiving that money. And why do this is also another question I have. Why do non-government organizations receive money from the government if they are non-government organizations?
Yeah, I think that's not an accurate term to describe government-funded organizations. I think they should be called something else, like government-funded organizations.
America's interests.
One other thing to make clear here is on a public website, this information is not available. And the public deserves this. They're the taxpayers. They should have this information in front of them. However, we're sitting in the secretary's office. We have the responsibility to oversee these programs. We are unable to access the same information. If you ask me to identify that provider right there, we would have to ask the state for that information. Even though we're the ones that are writing checks that fund a majority of the Medicaid program, in many cases, almost all of the Medicaid program among certain populations, we do.
So them stopping payments to everything is totally legit because of the fact that they aren't complying. We are not complying, or our Secretary of State, our whoever is the head of the Department of Human Resources here, they're not cooperating. They're not holding up their end of the bargain with any grant money that we get here in the state. So it pisses me off. I'm so angry about that part.
Do not have access to that information. When we ask for that information, oftentimes states refuse to provide it to us.
Yeah, it just shows that either they're committing fraud or they have something to hide. And when an NGO, literally a non-government organization, is receiving hundreds of millions of dollars, I think people deserve to know where that money goes. And so when me and David went and did this video on the fraud, we had the CCAP funding. The way that we got those numbers was because somebody from inside the Capitol finally gave David those numbers after literally months and years of asking for it. And so people were surprised to see that. It was funny because the people inside Minnesota called me everything but a liar because the numbers were true about the CCAP funding that was taking place. But what I'm getting to is Americans, we all work so hard, and most people are paying anywhere from 30 to 50% of their tax dollars or of their dollars back in the hands of the government, and then the government can't show us that transparency. And it seems like you guys are doing your part, especially right now. But it seems like the states in these places like Minnesota, for instance, literally do not want people to know where their money's going.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you're a private business serving private customers who are paying with their own money, maybe the world doesn't need to know all your.
Whoever's doing all the protesting of all the, and who's, trying to distract with the ICE thing and trying to they're distracting away from what this fraud is going on. They are, oh my God, you guys. We got to stop it. I don't know how. Minnesota's trying. And you know what? We have big elections this year, so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Business. But if you are
demanding how the
taxpayer money,
went last
then
I haven't heard
you have a responsibility to be pretty transparent about who you are, who works for you, what you're doing, the name of your organization, how it's funded, and what it does.
One thing as it comes to, taxpayers deserving to know where this money is going, I believe Minnesotans and American taxpayers would be shocked at the sheer scale of a lot of the spending that we're talking about. We talk often about the 14 high-risk categories that were identified by the state of Minnesota as being at the highest risk of fraud. Most of these are not the core Medicaid services that you would think a large amount of Medicaid money goes towards. These are things like non-emergency medical transport, autism services, adult daycare services, previously included the housing stabilization services. These are not your typical emergency room, inpatient hospital services. Just of those 14 services that are at incredibly high risk of fraud, it amounted in last year to $515 million a quarter only in federal spending. That does not include the additional state money that is contributed on top of that. We were talking about billions of dollars a year in federal money flowing to the highest risk categories for fraud in the state of Minnesota. And these are not the services that if I gave you the pen and said, write out what you think Medicaid should cover, these would not be the services that you would identify. And so I think people would be shocked when we start talking about the numbers as it pertains to healthcare and Medicaid fraud. We're talking about billions with a B. And I believe it is far more than people would anticipate it is.
Housing stabilization probably sounds like a stretch for Medicaid, right? We did work with Minnesota and shut that down in October.
Hold on.
But that's just one of these high-risk areas, and there's a lot more work to do.
That is a lot of money. Billions of dollars.
Started to think. I'm starting to put some puzzle pieces here together, you guys. Give me a second here. Let me just borrow some of your time here with a thought. With a thought. And the thought is, who elects these people? Who puts them on the ballot? These Democrats. Democrat delegates do. I guess I never even went that far into it. I mean, obviously. So I'm curious to see how the Democrat caucus went. I wish I would have been a fly on the wall because I'm curious. I know somebody who went, but I don't know. I think she's GOP though, and totally in a different area than me, over in St. Paul. And I'm like, I'm curious to see. I'm gonna keep one. I'm gonna have to do some digging because when you think about it, what if the delegates are getting? I mean, it's possible. So when you go to caucus, when you go to these events, you start to notice things. I mean, I've been trying to go to some of these events and, you know, watching kind of from a distance and just kind of trying to observe more to learn the process because you know, it's constitutional law and learning the ins and outs of the Constitution, not only of the US Constitution, but of your state constitution. It's a lot of work. You know, you can claim you know it, you know your basic stuff, but you don't know how to do this or how to file paperwork or what meeting needs to happen or what needs to be signed or, you know, that kind of stuff. You don't know. Do you? Does everybody know? No, they don't. Most people don't. The average person doesn't. I don't care who you are. The average person doesn't because I know that there's probably thousands that live in my precinct and like 9 show up, right? 10, 9, 11, 12, there's probably a dozen people, right? Out of even 100. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, wait a second. We aren't paying enough attention. And that's how we let these things go. And so there's other people that are left in these positions and that nobody else is there to watch anything happen. And, you know, so that's why you got to get involved. I'm just saying. That's how I see it. And and I'm starting to see patterns of things within, the delegation process, within that interstate government process. I've been trying to learn it for 5 years now. And it's hard. It's a lot. This is why people become lifetime politicians, because it's dangerous. It's dangerous. Politics is dangerous. I don't care what anybody says. Dangerous. And you can clearly see in Minnesota, politics are very dangerous. No wonder people die from it. No wonder people get killed. I see it. I've seen it just at the delegate level, because at the delegate level, people have power, and it's interesting that if the Democrats are doing, I mean, it makes me wonder if the delegates are in on the scam, because they're the ones that are putting these people on the ballots. So it's my hope that more Democrats, I was telling everybody that I knew that was a Democrat, go to your caucus, because if the reasonable people start going to their caucuses, then we got a shot, because they'll see the others doing things. This could take some years, you guys, to fix. But I'm just thinking about all the little chess pieces that are happening here, and that's a possibility to me. And it's scary to think, because I go into this thinking, oh, everybody's going to be honest. No, the fuck they are. They're not. Not everybody's honest. Everybody's got something. Everybody's got something. And you know what? And they're using this is the, I don't know if I should say it tonight, but I'm gonna tell you, I see some races that get no attention or get no help because people say it's a lost cause, but really what the fuck is people just, there's money there, and so they have to just pick somebody to fill that spot, and sometimes they put people in that spot that are more unknown, and then you can't find anything on them, so everything about their life's been scrubbed. Why do you think that is? Huh? You know what I mean? It's been scrubbed. If you go back and look up old candidates, these people just don't have the internet. They never, come on, man. It's 2026. You kidding me? Yeah, something. I don't know.
Like how do,
especially if you're running for public office and you don't have social media, or you know what I mean? That would be really odd.
Americans gain trust inside of the government? Like, what active steps are being taken for people to be able to feel that trust?
I think the thing at this point that people trust is transparency, open books, public records that they can look at, names of organizations, names of providers, very clear public accounting of where the money goes.
And
they're not going to trust any particular individual or official to say, trust me. They're going to want to see it.
Yeah, because at this point, people are kind of losing it. They're like, well, who do we trust? There's fraud on Democrats, there's fraud on Republicans. What's going on? And I want to move on to the topic of like NGOs and nonprofits here inside the United States. What's the purpose of an NGO?
Well, the stated purpose of a lot of nonprofit organizations varies. Some claim to work in foreign policy, some claim to provide services. As you pointed out, NGO is not really a very accurate name if they're getting any kind of government funding.
How do they justify being a non-government organization? Meanwhile, they receive money from the government.
Right.
Well, it's a misleading name that they use, and we shouldn't use it.
Do you think the name NGO will ever be abolished?
Well, if people stop using it, it'll fade.
If I want to start an NGO called Nick Shirley's Profits for Eritrean Youth, how hard would it be for me to get funding?
Well, I think if you're that honest, then it'd be hard to get taxpayer money unless there was a program that was actually aiming for that.
He's got
like,
little
do you think if I were to
Joey's
do that, I'd probably have to grab immigrant and then use him to be like the face of it in order to get by like people in Minnesota have?
Yeah, that might work in certain states.
Oh,
It's pretty crazy that the fact that just because I've been inside some of these buildings, I use the word Eritrean because I remember going inside of one of these buildings. It was Eritrean, like youth building or something like that, something along the words of like Eritrean community, something. But if you drive around Minnesota, you just see all these weird businesses, and it's like, what is this? It's like help for African communities, or they're just using people's kindness to receive money. They're putting on the most
everybody's
vulnerable,
got to hustle.
whether it be autistic
everybody's
children,
got their fucking hand out.
migrants,
They all got
or
their
people just
hand
on welfare. Does the topic of immigrants being on welfare apply to what you guys do?
Sure, yeah.
So how come in Minnesota 81% of Somalians are on welfare? And how can we give welfare to people who aren't citizens of the United States?
A lot of states have varying policies on providing welfare to legal immigrants and the illegal immigrants. That's partly a matter of state policies differing, but there's also a matter of, in practice, giving money to people that are not eligible even by the varying state policies.
And some of the work done by the Republican-led Congress earlier last year in the Working Families Tax Cut Act took action to ensure that benefits, particularly in the Medicaid program, are reserved for the most vulnerable Americans. And so in Minnesota, one category that allows a lot of Somali-born individuals to receive Medicaid is the refugee population. The Working Families Tax Cut Act removed being a refugee as a category that would allow you to draw down Medicaid benefits. The refugee status is one category that has allowed, people that most Americans would say should not have received Medicaid to receive Medicaid. For instance, the Afghan national who shot 2 National Guardsmen last year in Washington, D.C., received Medicaid benefits because he was a refugee. And so the Republican Congress, working with the administration, took action to ensure those categories of immigrants beginning next October do not have eligibility for these benefits. Additionally, on top of people who used to qualify for Medicaid legally, we also, since the beginning of this administration, have identified millions of illegal aliens who receive Medicaid. This is through multiple categories. Some are fraudulently enrolled, where states did not accurately verify their immigration status prior to enrolling them. Additionally, and this includes Minnesota, a number of states operate programs where they use state-only funding to provide full Medicaid benefits to illegal aliens. And Minnesota was one of those states. California is another one. However, we conducted audits of all of these states and found that these states improperly either intermixed funds or drew down federal funds improperly to use federal taxpayer money to fund full Medicaid benefits for illegals. And we have recently penalized the state of Minnesota for that money. California had previously been penalized by over $1 billion for using federal taxpayer money to provide benefits for illegal aliens. This is particularly a concern of the administration because, in our view, when healthcare benefits using either state-only money or using a mix of state and federal money are provided to illegal aliens, it provides an incentive for additional illegal immigration.
So to get that correct, in a place like California and Minnesota, illegal migrants were getting Medicaid for completely free.
Yes, Minnesota and a number of other states openly and actively solicited adult illegal aliens to gain access to their Medicaid programs. And we also showed that they improperly drew down federal money to subsidize these programs.
American taxpayers are very generous. They can't afford to buy health care for everyone on earth. And it's a bad incentive to say to everyone on earth, if you just cross this border, you get free health care.
People legit go bankrupt trying to pay off their medical bills. Meanwhile, illegals are coming here and they're getting it for free.
Yep.
Like, that's the biggest slap in the face to any law-abiding, tax-paying citizen.
I'm
is
so
for an illegal immigrant to come over the border and then receive free healthcare, free Medicare, and a lot of them then go on other welfare programs like food stamps and all the above. Meanwhile, it just feels like sometimes the American is just getting screwed over while they're using these people, whether it's for votes or whether they're looking for them to be votes in the future. It just does not feel right for the average American who's going to work waking up at 6 a.m. to provide for his family.
Nations have a right to set their immigration policies and set their welfare policies and set their healthcare policies. American taxpayers have been very generous at providing a lot of services for a lot of vulnerable populations. But those are the populations that should get the money.
How much longer do you think it will take for us to get to the very bottom of the fraud? Like, is it possible to get to the bottom of the fraud in the United States?
Look at that.
Well, the most urgent thing that we're doing is we're not letting them dig any deeper. We're cutting off the flow of money for fraud and sending out money only when we're sure it's going to the actual vulnerable populations.
Nice.
As far as investigations, what's happened in the past, we're pursuing that through our Office of Inspector General. We're pursuing that through our General Counsel. Other departments are pursuing that as well. We hope state governments will also track down and hold accountable everyone who's been involved in fraud.
And you believe people will be put to prison?
That seems very likely. That takes a long time, though.
How long?
Well, prosecutions involve court appearances, investigations, trials. That sometimes takes years.
I'm just thinking about how long it's going to take for. I feel like if one of the big politicians in the U.S. goes down for fraud, I feel like people are going to restore their faith that the government is not hiding from anything.
We find
Well,
out
Governor Walz dropped out of the race for re-election. That
before any
looks like
conviction,
a little bit of accountability, and I'm sure there will be more.
What did you guys think about that when he dropped out of re-election?
Well, given the circumstances around that particular week, it looked like he realized that running on a record of fraud was not likely to win with Minnesota voters.
Will he be able to run away from the fraud?
Well, in a sense, it's already interrupted his career.
Another thing that I thought is interesting is with all these daycares in Minnesota, you never saw a single Minnesotan come out and say, crap, I can't put my kid in daycare today because of you guys freezing the funding.
You are doing the right thing, which is asking questions and going to places in person
I've been saying
and showing the world what what you're asking, what people are saying, and I'm really grateful to you for doing that.
Because if I was a mother and if I was a daycare owner and I need to provide food for my kids at the daycare, I'd submit that payment pretty quick. Now, I brought someone else on. You know a lot about Medicare. How hard is it for someone to receive Medicare here?
So to receive Medicare, there's a lot of levers that we have as a federal government. So we do a pretty good job of limiting fraudulent Medicare going to beneficiaries. But as a provider, there's actually a lot that I would say the last administration failed to do. And there's one funny story of one of the individuals at CMS who was actually able to enroll their dog successfully as a Medicare provider.
Really? So it was literally that easy to the point where someone could enroll their dog to receive money from the government.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I think clearly it's not a secret to criminals who are trying to defraud the U.S. government that it's pretty easy to do so. There are billions of dollars of fraud that go out to criminal organizations. Really, I would say there's different places where foreign adversaries have specialized in committing different types of Medicare fraud. So it's a pretty common thing.
So if a dog can enroll to receive Medicare,
not to receive Medicare, to be a Medicare provider.
Oh, so even worse. So if a dog can become a Medicare provider, how hard would it be for an illegal migrant to and receive money from the government?
That's a great question. I think
our CMS team is making it a lot harder for Medicare and Medicaid to commit fraud, but it used to be really easy.
Yeah, because that's pretty crazy. A freaking dog was able to receive money from the government. That sounds like something I would have done for like a Catch Me If You Can kind of like remake movie.
When we took office, HHS and CMS, there were a number of things that just were not being done. So over the last, I'd say 4 years leading up, there were certainly plenty of steps. It was a lot of low-hanging fruit, things that we came in and held competitions to solicit input from different technology companies on where we could catch fraud. And we were inundated with different ways that we could address this. And it certainly wasn't a lack of ideas or lack of places where we could take action. It was a lack of where action had not been taken. And I think you'll see that we've already taken a number of actions. We continue to take actions. Medicaid's obviously been in the limelight, but there's a lot of ways that we've been addressing Medicare fraud as well.
Well, I wish you guys best of luck in cracking down on the fraud because it needs to get done.
Please
so,
get it on.
Thank you once again.
From Minnesota.
And
Minnesota.
Pleasure to speak with you guys.
Please,
thanks for coming in.
Metro area, please do it. Please help me. Help me. Okay, my people are suffering. Like that one guy. He ain't wrong. He was an advocate for the handicap, and he's like, my people are suffering, and he's questioning them on the fraud, and it's like, exactly. His passion is how we feel. The innocent in all of this. That's how we feel. We've been victimized over and over again. We're being victimized by these protesters. We're being victimized by our state officials who won't turn over information. They just keep re-victimizing all of us, and it's awful. It's an awful feeling. It's an awful feeling to know that you're being victimized over and over again by your own federal government. But you know what? We dropped the ball. We weren't paying attention. It's not, we have to accept some of that responsibility. But at this point now, we're begging for help. Begging. Look. I'll go. Okay, look. I'll go through the job offers that are going to be out there. I'm gonna guess because I might actually apply for one of these jobs to find the fraud. I might actually do that. I'm thinking about it. I mean, if you guys have, do it, man. Why not? They might even pay for your expenses to come and visit me here in Minnesota. Or not. I don't know, man. I'm sure there's plenty in your state too, wherever you are. Oh, lordy, you guys. This is terrible. It's just terrible stuff. Okay, so what do we got here? Let's do this. Let's see what we got. There were some other things. Oh, I wanted to see about what happened with that Savannah Guthrie's grandma. What? An hour ago. Look at, here we go.
Excuse
You
me,
know what?
we're just getting this video in right now from Savannah Guthrie. Let's watch it together. Go.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them, and we continue to believe that she feels them too. Our mom is a kind, faithful, loyal, fiercely loving woman of goodness and light. She's funny, spunky, and clever. She has grandchildren that adore her and crowd around her and cover her with kisses. She loves fun and adventure. She is a devoted friend. She is full of kindness and knowledge. Talk to her and you'll see.
The light is missing from our lives. Nancy is our mother. We are her children. She is our beacon. She holds fast to joy in all of life's circumstances. She chooses joy day after day. Despite having already passed through great trials of pain and grief, we are always going to be merely human, just normal human people who need our mom. Mama, if you're listening, we need you to come home. We miss you.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She's 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that
They
you
want
have her.
proof of life.
We want to hear from you.
Like a scene
and
out
we
of
are ready to listen.
freaking Criminal Minds.
Please reach out to us.
It's the truth.
Mommy, if you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We believe and know that even in this valley, He is with you. Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere. We will not rest. Your children will not rest until we are together again. We speak to you every moment, and we pray without ceasing, and we rejoice in advance for the day that we hold you in our arms again. We love you, Mom.
Love you, Mom.
We love you, Mom. Stay strong.
We love you, Mom. We love you.
Hey, Sean Hannah.
Okay, so we're going to lift up Nancy right now. We're going to pray for her. So, Father God, we just pray for Nancy Guthrie. Father God, we just pray that you send your angels, your mightiest angels, to go and surround her and those around her. Lord, I pray that you put a layer of protection, then add another layer of protection. Lord, show her those layers of protection and help her to know that she's safe, Father, in your arms, Lord, because she's surrounded. She's surrounded by you, Lord. She might think that she's surrounded, but she's surrounded by you, Lord. And so we just bind all the principalities and the powers and the rulers of darkness of this world, and we cast down all demons and dark spirits that would try to harm her, Father God. We cast them out of any bodies that are taking possession of people around her, Father God. So we just bind all of that. Send your mightiest angels to take care of business, Lord. Do whatever it takes, Lord. Thank you in Jesus' name, amen. All right, so we had to do that real quick. Well, good. You know what? You know what? There you go. Let's move on. What do we got next? Oh my God. I haven't watched any of today's news. So that's the most recent thing that they had. So they're putting that out now. So let's see what else they got, because I kind of want to catch up. Ooh. Rick Renner's got another one. What does redemption mean? 3,000. Oh, ICE arrest 3,000 in Minnesota fentanyl hub. Is that true? A lot of this stuff is fake news. I don't know about that. No, I don't. I'm going to wait until I see something. Tensions grow inside Minnesota federal courts. Let's watch.
To say that federal court hearings in Minnesota are a bit of a hot mess right now would be understating it. Habeas corpus lawsuits against the Trump administration are piling up, and sudden resignations of more than a dozen federal prosecutors in our state are leading to a massive backlog of cases. And to top all of that off, a lawyer that came in to help stop the bleeding has now been removed after standing in court yesterday and telling a judge, the system sucks, this job sucks. Here's Ken.
At a hearing in federal court in St. Paul on Tuesday, Judge Jerry Blackwell again pushed the U.S. Attorney's Office for answers about failures to comply with court orders demanding the timely release of people unlawfully detained during Operation Metro Surge, adding, quote, "The court has had hundreds of these at this point." Attorney Julie Lee, who normally works as an ICE attorney in immigration court, responded in part, "They are overwhelmed and they need help. So I have to say, stupidly enough, to volunteer. I have to be honest, we have no guidance or direction on what we need to do. And so when you showed up, they just throw you in the well, and then here we go." In less than a month, we inherited nearly 100 habeas cases, including the case of a 19-year-old named Oscar, a Minnesota resident and South St. Paul grad who had legal status and a work permit, but was still detained for 19 days despite 3 court orders demanding his release. "I am not defending it," Lee said, adding, "I did put in my resignation from the job too, but they couldn't find a replacement. Sometime I wish you would just hold me in contempt, Your Honor, so that I can have a full 24 hours of sleep. I work days and night just because people are still in there. The system sucks. This job sucks. And I am trying every breath that I have so that I can get you what you need." A day later, a Department of Justice spokesperson tells us Lee's detail with the U.S. Attorney's Office is now over. In response to her concerns, they added, "If rogue judges followed the law in adjudicating cases and respected the government's obligation to properly prepare cases, there wouldn't be an overwhelming habeas caseload or concern over DHS following orders." Though Judge Blackwell didn't respond directly, he offered this explanation Tuesday, saying in court, "What we really want is simply compliance, because on the other side of this is somebody who should not have been arrested, in some instances in the first place, who's being hauled in jail and put in shackles for days, if not a week plus, after they've been ordered released." Lee responded, "I share the same concern with you, Your Honor. I am not white, as you can see, and my family's at risk as any other people that might get picked up too. So I share the same concern, and I took that concern to heart. But again, fixing a system, a broken system, I don't have a magic button to do it. I don't have the power or the voice to do it. I only can do it within the ability and the capacity that I have."
Every freaking
And again,
race.
Julie Lee has now lost that capacity, and she's not alone. Assistant U.S. Attorney Anna Voss, who also handles these cases, was in court yesterday, but won't be for long. She's among the 14 people who have recently resigned from that office. In response, the DOJ is reportedly requiring U.S. attorneys across the country to rapidly assign prosecutors that will be available to respond to other districts. According to Bloomberg Law, which broke that story, these so-called emergency jump teams will be used in areas that need urgent assistance. And Jana, I think that we qualify.
Yeah, I would think that we would be at the top of the list there. But even if they do come, there's still those hundreds of backlogged cases.
Yeah, this is.
There certainly are. There are a lot. Now, Julie Lee and the others have said that they have made progress.
There needs to be something methodical. They're going to have to model the response. We're going to have to tailor this response to this massive fraud. And the thing is that's kind of what the Doge thing was cutting off the bleeding, stop the bleeding. First and foremost, start from scratch. You know what? Nobody gets nothing. Everything, all those records sealed. Everything, not sealed, but closed. Everything, box all that information up because we got to sift through it with a fine-tooth comb. We're going to start fresh, and you better have your fucking paperwork because right now, that's what it needs to happen. Start fresh, new everybody, new case. You have got to apply as if this is, and we have got to have, that little Tiki Brown girl, the Department of, or the Commissioner of Child and Human Services, Child and Adult Services of Minnesota, whatever. I don't know she's some commissioner that she's in charge of all this. And she was the one saying, oh, that Leering Center was closed down, but then they had kids there the next day. Remember that? Or like an hour later and stuff. Just that fiasco because she's probably in on it. She ain't doing her job, Tiki. You weren't doing your job. You were doing the same thing, thinking it was gonna work again, and it ain't. Tiki, get your shit together, Tiki. Get me started on that broad. Oh, Tiki, I'm serious. You think I'm kidding you? I'm not. Okay. A coalition of mayors. They had to start turning off comments. Oh, on the live streams. I'm glad that the rural Minnesota is speaking out for so long. They stayed quiet. This is the responses. I respect these mayors for speaking out, and they should keep their foot on the neck of those crooked politicians. Look, watch. These are some mayors that came forward. Who do we got here? These are some more mayors. They had like a bunch of them that signed something a while back.
Yeah.
I'm glad that these are small town mayors. And they're like, hey, it's affecting these small towns in a huge way. But as long as
who wants to volunteer as the graph flipper?
It's slowing things down for them.
Who wants to be the graph flipper?
That's a bullshit coming here.
You'll flip for me? Okay.
Make sure you get that tie in the shot.
Every time.
The $100 tie combined fraud.
Okay, so when I call for speakers, Nate, you, Andrea, after Nate, Jimmy Francis.
Listen for this for an hour. This
right
there. For an hour? You guys.
Flipper, and then Mr. Fabian, you're right there.
I won't do that.
Dan, did you want to say anything or no? You're fine? Okay. I just need to see the orders of the graphs.
Okay, let's just go fast forward until you start talking about substance. Let's find out.
Are you guys all right? I know. Hey, what's that sign, right? Perfect. All right. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here today. First and foremost, I want to thank my fellow mayors from across the state of Minnesota standing here together. Never before has this ever been done with this many mayors banded together to speak with one voice and advocate so forcefully on behalf of the people that we serve. What was once 8 mayors grew to 98 mayors, then 241 mayors, and today we're at 261 mayors that have signed this letter condemning fraud and fiscal responsibility. That alone should tell you the gravity of this moment. We are here today to address 2 issues that are actively harming every hardworking Minnesotan: rampant fraud that continues to drain public trust and taxpayer dollars, as well as the failed economic direction of our state. From the very beginning, this letter I initiated, now 261 mayors strong, has been centered on one thing: the pocketbooks of hardworking Minnesotans. For far too long, our state legislature has advanced fiscal and social policies that take more from hardworking Minnesotans than they give back, hurt job providers, and suppresses growth. We see it every day. More money coming out of the paychecks, more taxes passed along onto families, and more unfunded mandates shifted onto cities and counties, and fewer resources that meet the basic needs. The burden keeps growing, and the state's appetite for spending shows no sign of warning. Minnesota is on a dangerous trajectory. We are spending at unstable levels, ignoring structural problems, and pushing costs downward until they land squarely on local governments and taxpayers. This is not a theoretical problem. It is real. Accelerating crisis that threatens the long-term financial stability of our state our communities, and the services that Minnesotans rely on. Second, just as alarming is the scale of fraud that has plagued Minnesota and tarnished our reputation nationwide. Minnesotans are losing faith that accountability will ever come. During the 2015 governor's fishing opener, Governor Walz visited Cross Lake, the city I'm proud to represent. So following discussion, he agreed to meet with local mayors from the Brainerd Lakes area. Across the table, the message was consistent and clear. Affordability is collapsing in the state of Minnesota, and unfunded mandates are crushing our communities. When pressed about the looming deficit, the governor acknowledged the Department of Human Services was being abused, that guardrails were lacking, and that counties were enrolling individuals into programs without sufficient oversight. On that point, the governor was right. But the acknowledgement raises an even more troubling question. If this abuse was known, why were stronger safeguards not put in place sooner? Federal prosecutors and investigative reporting have alleged that fraud tied to Minnesota-administered programs may total billions of dollars, with estimates publicly cited as high as $9 billion. While the state administration currently has disputed having definitive proof of that full amount, what is indisputable is this: hundreds of millions of dollars have already been proven stolen. Dozens of defendants have been charged by federal prosecutors, and systematic failures allowed it to happen. Not enough has been done by the governor, his administration, as well as our legislature to protect Minnesota taxpayers, protect counties, and restore confidence in state government. Accountability has been very slow. Reforms have been reactive. Minnesotans are left wondering how much more damage will be tolerated before real change actually occurs. As early as 2018, if not earlier, fraud was brought before congressional oversight committees in Washington, D.C. The warnings were there and the risks were clearly known. Minnesotans reasonably assumed that our governor and elected leaders would act, that they would confront fraud, prosecute those who stole from taxpayers, and put real safeguards in place to prevent it from ever happening again. Sadly, that did not happen. They were simply too Minnesota nice. Instead, we saw hesitation, delay, and deference when urgency and resolve were required. Instead of being stopped, sadly, the fraud was allowed to grow. Instead of being contained, it escalated. What could have been addressed early was ignored, and now the consequences have multiplied. The crisis was not sudden. It was simply ignored. While Minnesota elected officials are currently busy playing the blame game, federal prosecutors are now here investigating on what the hell went wrong. Mayors see up close how catastrophic fiscal policy and unchecked fraud hollow out our cities, strain our budgets, and drive up taxes. And it also erodes trust among the people we serve. This is not abstract. We live it, we breathe it, we hear it at the grocery store, at the post office, and at City Hall. Cities are at the level of government closest to the people. We are the ones who respond when snowplows don't arrive, when streetlights go dark, when water mains break, or when businesses need help navigating permits, or when seniors are looking for support. When something fails, the call does not go to the governor's office or the state capitol. It comes right to City Hall and to mayors. Every unfunded mandate and cost shift forces us to possible choices: raise taxes, cut services, delay critical infrastructure, or stretch already thin city staff even further. This strain now reaches the very core of community safety. Police officers and firefighters are on the front line protection for our residents, yet rising levies and state-imposed costs make it increasingly difficult for cities to invest in the additional public safety our communities genuinely need to stay safe. Public safety, infrastructure, and basic community services are already on the chopping block, not because cities are mismanaged, but because the system above us is failing. All the while, the state continues to spend at a reckless pace, passing policies that increase the burden on Minnesotans far more than they provide relief. More mandates, more costs, more taxes, less accountability, less support, and less stability. And when no one steps in to stop it, when accountability fails at the very top, mayors are left with no choice but to stand up. This is why we are here, not because we want to be, but because we have to be. Minnesota needs a reset. Mayors do not have prosecutorial authority or subpoena power, but make no mistake, we are done standing on the sidelines. We are pulling out every stop available to us, and that is why we are here at the Capitol today. We have worked quietly, we have sent letters, we have met behind closed doors, and we've had endless phone calls with our state legislators, and still the problems continue to grow worse. So now we are stepping forward publicly as a united front of 261 mayors, collectively and unmistakably, to insert ourselves directly into the decisions being made in this very building. It means more than emails, it means more than phone calls, it means standing here shoulder to shoulder as we are today, demanding accountability and reform where it has been absent for far too long. We will not let fraud go unanswered. We will not allow our residents to remain unprotected. We will not accept fiscal policies that squander opportunity, stifle business growth, and drain household budgets. Saddling our cities with often ideologically driven, unfunded mandates we cannot absorb, whether it's carbon-free energy, infrastructure compliance, or housing and zoning, only leave our residents holding the bag. And we are saying no more. Our perspective is shaped not by ideology, but by responsibility born from real-world experience and the daily reality of local government. We are here to fight for common sense reform. We are here to fight for policies that grow Minnesota's economy, strengthen the pocketbooks of our citizens, and restore trust in our government. We are prepared to work hard in hand with any legislator who is willing to listen, willing to act, and willing to put Minnesotans first. This is mayors stepping in because no one else has, and we are not backing down. Next, you'll hear from mayors across the state and what they are witnessing firsthand. First up, Mayor Nick George from Brand.
I'm curious. What are you guys seeing?
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Mayor Nick George, Mayor of the City of Graham and candidate for Minnesota State Auditor. I want to thank the members of the press and, most importantly, my fellow mayors for standing with us here today. I'm speaking not just as the mayor of a small town, but as a neighbor, a homeowner, and a steward of a community that expects government at every level to be responsible with the public's money. Today, I stand alongside a nonpartisan coalition of mayors from across Minnesota, rural, suburban, and greater Minnesota, because what we're facing is bigger than any one city. It is a growing crisis driven by state-level fiscal mismanagement, unchecked fraud, and unfunded mandates that push costs down to local governments without the resources to pay for them. Let me be very clear. When fraud goes unaddressed and brazenly poor lawmaking goes unchecked at the state level, it doesn't just disappear. Every dollar lost to waste, fraud, and mismanagement is a dollar that can't go to roads, public safety, housing, or tax relief.
Well, public safety
let's be
in
honest,
cities sucks.
They're dollars that probably never should have been taxed in the first place. That means that burden lands squarely on the shoulders of local taxpayers. In our cities and towns, we don't have the luxury of ignoring the books. Local budgets must balance. Local government and private citizens must live within our means. We are audited, we are accountable, and when mistakes happen, they are visible, immediate, and personal. But when fraud or mismanagement happens at higher levels and is allowed to continue unchecked, the consequences are pushed downstream to cities and towns that had nothing to do with the decisions and no ability to prevent them. That's how we end up here. The state creates new programs, new requirements, new reporting mandates, often well-intentioned and sometimes ill-conceived, then fails to fully fund them. At the same time, billions of dollars are lost through weak oversight and delayed enforcement. Cities and towns are then told implicitly or explicitly, figure it out, or learn to budget better. I want to speak clearly and directly to the governor and the legislature right now. Those responses are not only tone deaf, they are grossly disingenuous to their constituents who can't afford to pay increasing property taxes and completely unacceptable.
Right?
Property taxes are not theoretical. They are real and growing burden on families trying to buy their first home, on seniors living on fixed incomes, and on small businesses struggling to keep their doors open. When affordability erodes, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens one tax bill at a time. Let me be clear about what this is not. This is not a partisan attack. This is not a blame game. This is not cities asking for special treatment. This is a call for basic accountability. Just do your job and do it well. If the state mandates it, the state must fund it. If fraud is discovered, it must be stopped quickly, transparently, completely. If leaders talk about affordability, those words must be backed up with fiscal discipline. Cities are already doing more with less. We've delayed projects, we've stretched staff, and in my case, in my town, we've even cut staff. We've cut non-essential services. We've postponed investments that we know we will eventually have to make anyway and will eventually become more expensive. There is no hidden reserve left. There is no painless cut remaining. And yet we are still expected to deliver clean water, safe streets, police and fire protection, snow plowing, and basic services that make a community livable. These are not luxuries. They are the foundation of daily life in America.
Yep.
Here's the uncomfortable truth. Local governments did not create this affordability crisis, but we are the ones being forced to absorb it.
Yep.
Unchecked fraud and unfunded mandates are two sides of the same coin. One wastes public dollars, the other shifts the cost of government downward. Together, they undermine trust and make everyday life more expensive for the people who can least afford it. We are here today to say this is not sustainable.
All taken advantage of.
Acceptable. Minnesota's strength comes from its communities, from cities to towns where people invest, build, and believe in the future. That future is at risk when families are priced out of homeownership and small businesses are squeezed out of Main Street because the system refuses to hold itself accountable. We are asking for transparency. We are asking for responsibility. We are asking for an end to passing the bill downward while looking the other way upward. To our residents and business owners, we hear you and we are standing up for you. To state leaders, partner with us. Fix what is broken and restore trust through real accountability. And to everyone watching, affordability doesn't disappear in a headline. It erodes quietly until the damage is done. We are here to stop that erosion together. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, good morning. Thank you everyone for being here and coming here and watching. My name is Andrea Zapancic. I am the mayor of the city of Babbitt, which is just close to Canada and take 2 steps back. That's pretty much it. I have lived in northeastern Minnesota for over 30 years. I've been a small business owner of over 20 years, serving the entire northeastern sector of Minnesota. I've talked with so many families that are struggling right now and trying to make ends meet. Small businesses owners are fighting to keep the lights on, and people who just want to basically live their lives there. We feel their frustration and their hope, but now their anger as well. We're all in this together, and that's why I'm here to speak from the heart and about the issues that are affecting close to home. I'm going to start with something that's breaking the bank across Minnesota, the massive fraud in our state programs. We're talking about an estimated $9 billion in fraud. $9 billion, that's a big number. Now, they're calling it fraud, it's stealing. Just call it what it is. It's a fancy word for stealing, but they're stealing from the taxpayers that are paying and are responsible and cutting their own needs and wants, as well as the cities, to pay for those taxes. And to add insult to injury, it's reported that most of the money is not even being spent in Minnesota, it's flying out of the country. Now, this money was meant for our most vulnerable, kids, families, people with disabilities, that is flat out being stolen. Minnesota has about 858 towns or so. Now, if you break that down, that $9 billion number down, that's 10 plus million for each town or city. Now, I know what our town could do with that. We could really use that. Could you guys use that? Our city hall is a refurbished elementary school. We could literally get adult-sized toilets. So that would be a luxury for us. Now, 10 billion, imagine if you had an extra $10 million plus. We could get a lot accomplished for our towns. Right now, we are begging and pleading for a $2 million potential bond. You know, we want to fix our buildings. We're not talking about building new buildings or anything like that. We're trying to get ADA compliance, size toilets,
million. That's it.
anything. We do not have a daycare in our town. There are very few daycares all around our area. And here down in the metro, they're opening up dozens.
What?
And there's
Is their own
one reported
kid?
that has maybe 10 million in fraud right now.
No.
Now, the one center has about 10 million since 2019, and now they're under scrutiny for billing issues. But they're still getting money. The money hasn't stopped. I don't understand that. If someone is stealing from you, you stop that right then and there.
Right.
I don't understand why the paying is still going on.
Not
The money is still
rocket
going on.
science. Well,
We're not against these appropriate programs. We're Minnesota. We help people. But every dollar wasted is a dollar not going to real needs, like building sustainable childcare in every part of the state, in every community where it is so desperately needed. This is stolen taxpayer money, and we want accountability as well. We're called to the table. We are beaten up by our constituents. We are scratching. We're boots on the ground communities. We don't have extra staff for this and that and the other thing. We expect our government to do the same. The demand
they're
is
living
real,
larger
and they
in
need to be accountable.
Minneapolis.
The oversight to ensure the funds go exactly where they're supposed to. But the problems don't just stop there. Let's talk about the new taxes now and regulations piling up, especially those hitting our tourism industry in northern Minnesota. Our season is short. Summers fly by. Winters can be brutal. And we rely on visitors for not only hunting, fishing, but boating,
Minneapolis is eating
snowmobiling,
it all
and
up.
outdoor recreation to keep our towns alive.
Rochester.
Yet decisions from St. Paul are
St.
making it
Cloud.
harder, and we feel it. The Iron Range economy, centered on mining, tourism, and outdoor recreation in northeastern Minnesota, including towns like my own, Babbitt, Ely, Hibbing, Virginia, Grand Rapids, we all face significant challenges from the newly found state-level issues like widespread fraud in social programs, but also rising taxes and regulations and short-term volatility in core industries. First, the gas tax in 2023 was initiated and has been steadily increasing and is now 32.6 cents per gallon as of this year, plus a 3.5 cent debt service surcharge. That's more money out of your pocket every time you come to Minnesota, every time you go to work, every time you go to the grocery store, anytime you go anywhere, whether you're coming in to visit us or whether you live here and you're just going to another part. Now, what about boaters? Starting this year, the Aquatic Invasive Species surcharge on watercraft licenses jumped from $10 to between $14 and $62, depending on your boat size and type. That's a huge increase for families who just want to take a day and then go out on the water and enjoy it. But wait, there's more, of course.
Oh yeah, no. They
Upcoming,
raised
we have the
tax on
potential.
everything.
This is probably my favorite one. I'm being
Even after
sarcastic.
there was a surplus.
Foraging regulations. A state task force is now reviewing rules in gathering wild foods like mushrooms, berries, or wild rice on public lands. And they're talking about new permits or fees. Foraging is a tradition here, and it's how many of us connect with nature and put food on the table. Adding costs or restrictions could once more further hurt ecotourism and local guides. Can you imagine having to go get a permit just to go blueberry picking? It's absolutely absurd, right? There are times I go blueberry picking when I know I'm in between appointments, and I'm like, oh yeah, I drive around with my bucket and my chair, and I'll go hit a patch or something. But now I don't even know what the permit's going to be, but I have to make sure I have a permit. And then there's fishing. The DNR is proposing to slash the statewide walleye bag limit from 6 to 4, effective next year if it's approved. Now, walleye is king by us. We're on Birch Lake, which is one of the top 10 walleye lakes, my favorite lake personally. It's what draws anglers from across the country. Reducing limits might protect the stock, but without careful thought, it could also chase away those tourists and hurt resorts and bait shops, which are already struggling. They made it through COVID, God love them. And then come the historic floods that we had up north. Not 1 year, but 2 years, 2 different areas hit. Then we had the lack of snow, also almost unheard of in our area. And then last year, we had massive smoke from Canadian wildfires, which definitely affected our campground and all the other resorts that are up in the area. Hunting and snowmobiling faces hurdles too. During deer season, ATV and snowmobile use is restricted on state lands to avoid disturbing game. Only allowed before dawn, midday, and after dusk for hunters. That's fair for conservation, I get it. But combined with the rising cost of gas costs, and potentially new rules, it's squeezing out our short season, making our season even shorter. We need balance. We need to protect our resources, yes, but don't regulate away the very activities that sustain our economy and push tourists away and take away at lifelong family traditions.
That's what these
Folks,
are.
These are inconveniences. These are threats to northern Minnesota, and we are feeling targeted.
Yeah, they're personal.
We need sustainable jobs and with real benefits, jobs that support families year round, not just seasonal gigs. We need investments in our own fundamentals, roads, schools, senior programs, ADA compliance, and basic infrastructure.
Right.
Not flashy projects, or more importantly, fraudulent programs in the metro, where the money is ultimately going overseas, as I stated earlier, and not staying in Minnesota. While rural areas are left begging for scraps and still being required to pay more and more in taxes. Rural properties often have higher effective rates due to lower tax bases, aging infrastructure needs, roads, schools, and much less commercial revenue. Combined with tourism pressures, this squeezes homeowners and small businesses. Many of us on the Iron Range feel the sticker shock. While begging and competing against each other for the state bonding help, small rural employers like resorts, guides, bait shops, with thin margins and short seasons may struggle with added costs. While benefits help workers, no doubt, and the tax burden could lead to reduced hiring or higher prices in seasonal industries. And let's face it, there are way more smaller business owners in Minnesota than there are large business owners. In northern Minnesota, we're at about 99% small business owners. Now, we've seen faster losses in small businesses just even this past year. And it's heartbreaking because you've seen a lot of these businesses come to fruition when they started. And as I mentioned before, they made it through COVID, and it was a struggle for a lot of businesses to get through that, but they made it. And then now all of a sudden you're seeing them either get foreclosed on, shutting the doors, not being able to sustain their own costs. So that favorite pizza place that you had is no longer there. That favorite place that you would go get your sweatshirts, your have cool knickknacks, that's gone. It's just not possible for them. Large employers are rare in our neck of the woods, but we welcome them nonetheless, and we want them. My town is also looking for police officers, so if anyone wants a job change, come on up north. Take Babbitt, for example. Hardworking town I proudly serve as in mayor. We're pleading right now for that $10 million bonding grant to repair, rehab, remodel, so we can offer services for all ages from 0 to 99. These are programs that are needed for our seniors. We need to have additional programs for the children in our area. We want to make sure they have the same advantages that the kids in the metro have. That's not a luxury, it's a necessity. Now imagine what that $10 million plus amount, merely a share of that $9 billion fraud pie for a town like ours could do. Or a town like yours, or a town like yours. Wouldn't you love to go back and say, hey, I got an extra 10, right? We could update our community center, as I mentioned before. We could offer a real daycare instead of piecing together a person here and a person there, or a grandma here. I'm one of those grandmas. I've got my Friday non-paying side hustle. I look forward to it, but it's hard. It's a struggle because I'm also working too. And I'm just not gonna get over this, those adult-sized toilets. Think about it next time. So instead, the money's going out the window while our taxpayers are footing the bill. We are not against progress or helping those in need, but the fundamentals of Minnesota must come first.
We
and
are
sustainable programs that serve
suffering.
every city and every town. In the metro, not waste through fraud and stealing, and not exclusive to the metro. We need to prioritize our people, our families, our outdoors, and our future. Minnesota has been going down in population as a whole. We need to rebuild that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm speaking out to a fight for accountability,
It's only
cut
by
the
the grace
waste, and
of
bring
God that I'm
resources
still
back
here.
where they're needed the most. Together, we can make Minnesota stronger, fairer, and truer to who we really are. We are all feeling the pain of higher costs. True leadership means finding solutions, not just creating more unfundable and unsustainable programs. Thank you for listening and standing with me today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Jimmy Francis, Mayor of the Center of the Universe, South St. Paul. Before I get into my words, which will be really, really brief, I just want to reiterate that we're mayors standing here, but in my case, it's my entire council is supportive of me standing.
St.
So
Paul
it's not just
is the
mayors,
metro.
it is councils throughout the state of Minnesota
They
that want us to speak up about fraud. And Minnesotans, I'm here with outstate Minnesotans mayors, and we all like good fish stories, don't we? Yeah, we've heard a bunch of them, but the difference between the catch of a real whopper and that fishtail is a fine line, and we all know what that is, right? We've all heard it. And so when the governor says this is happening all over in every state, it's a little disingenuous. It's not happening everywhere. It's like somebody that's claiming they caught a 40-pound walleye on a Snoopy pole. It really doesn't come from reality, right? And truth. And we, as other mayors, have if you got one, okay. Well, we want to see it if there was one. I'm sure there is a real story out there. But again, not making light of things, but again, bringing that idea here forward that we know a farce when we hear it, and we're hearing a lot of it. So I'm here really to continue to, with my fellow mayors, is to keep that flag risen, to keep the fraud flag risen, because it looks to me like the state, we have a saying in Minnesota, watch your bobber, right? Yeah. Keep an eye on things. Well, it appears that this is not only not watching your bobber, but maybe set a tip up and walk away. And when that flag came up, even the fishing party, the people in the party said, hey, your flag is up, and they just ignore it.
Right.
That is what we're faced with here in the state of Minnesota.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
Our mayors are really here to just, again, to reinforce that we need to keep the fraud on the front burner and not get distracted and continue to work to be able to do all the things that the mayors here said to you. I want to bring something about DHS that's happening in my city right now. I just was on the phone a couple hours ago with a provider who's a good provider. He's a legitimate provider. He's done all of the right things. He's vetted, but they stopped all payments. He is 62 days into providing services that he is required to provide to those people that get this service without a paycheck from the state. He's 62 days into that process. He cannot do it any longer. So what happens? He's going to stop paying his people. He's going to stop doing the services. And those people who are getting the services are going to turn to us. They're going to turn to 911. They're going to turn to the mayor and the city council. I need your help. How can you help me? And by then, that's just too far gone. So again, we need to raise the flag. We need to make sure that the state is doing the right thing with DHS to be able to bring in the right providers. Let's get that vetted list going so that those good providers can continue to provide the services to our community, the most vulnerable people in our community. And that's really why I'm here. I'm also here just to make sure that, again, if we're not watching that bobber, they're going to come and take the whole tackle box. So we're here to just reiterate the fact that we want you all to know and come here unified, nonpartisan, as it's been stated, that we want more action in the fraud department. Thank you.
Yeah, we do want more action in the fraud department.
Love that bobber story. I'm Dan Fabian. I live in Roseville, Minnesota. I'm the mayor. Mayor from Babbitt mentioned the Canadian border. I'm 11 miles from the Canadian border.
Roseville,
and walleyes go 22 miles from Lake of the Woods, and that's where I like to spend a lot of my summer. Just a little history. I spent 10 years here in the legislature, and when this fraud stuff started, back particularly with the child care issue, it was all over the place. Everybody knew about it, but really nothing was ever being done. And this is a problem that has compounded itself, and it has expanded into all kinds of other areas.
Now, I've been asked today, well, first of all, Roseau is a town of about 2,700 people. Literally out the back window of my house, I can see the Polaris plant. Polaris was started there in 1954. And it is, in my opinion, the greatest ATV and snowmobile manufacturer in the world. I'm proud to say that. And if you're looking for some fun this winter or next summer coming up, we've got a lot of trail systems up there that are very fun to be on. You know, what's frustrating to me and my council members and the mayors who are standing behind me and my friends and neighbors around town is that seemingly very, very few people in the decision-making process are being held accountable for what has happened with regards to the fraud. My wife does not go to the grocery store with me anymore, okay? I get stopped virtually every time I go to the gas station, to the cafe, to the grocery store, the bait shop, whatever. People are asking me, Dan, what the hell is going on down there? And this has been going on since the mid-teens here in Minnesota. This is 10 years. And it's like, it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So in Roseau, we struggle with all kinds of things that are happening as far as mandates. And some of these are very difficult to navigate. You know, you get a city like Roseau with about 24 full-time employees. And if by chance it happens that we have some people that decide to take 12 or 20 weeks of paid leave, how do we fill in for those? Who's going to want to come
Don't
to work
even
for
get
12
me
weeks?
started on that new fraud
Where do you find
scheme.
that person to come to Roseau? One of the biggest issues that we face are recruiting and retaining our employees. We have awesome employees in Roseau. They do outstanding work in all of our different departments, from police and maintenance crews and all that stuff. But I want to touch specifically on housing. When I was here in the legislature for those 10 years, one of the things that I worked on the most outside of environmental review and permitting and trying to speed things up and get the agencies to give us out some permits was housing. I spent a lot of time on housing. And my focus is for a place like Roseau that has that anchor manufacturing facility in town, in this case Polaris, but then there are other industries there, Carl Manufacturing and Intercept. 22 miles to the east of me, it's Marvin Windows and Doors. Thief River Falls has Arctic Cat and DigiKey. You know, these are anchor industries. And in a small place like Greenbush, they've got Central Boiler. It employs a whole bunch of people. And then we've got our Life Care Medical Facility there in town, in Roseau County, and they employ over 500 people. So housing is one of the issues that comes up when you're trying to recruit people to come to Roseau. So in 1976, I moved to Roseau. I got a job teaching, and I lived in an apartment building. That's hard to do nowadays because we don't have a lot of space in our apartments. So we're trying to figure out how can we make it affordable? How can we do some things that will get people to come to Roseau, at least in terms of housing? I talked to one of our developers today on the way down, 6.5 hours from Roseau. It's about $200,000 per unit now to build an apartment building. We would like to expand. We've only got 3 city lots in the development that we started about 10 years ago. There's only 3 lots left there. We have 19 more plotted, but it's going to cost us almost $100,000 per lot to put in the streets, the sewer, the curb and gutter, the water, all that infrastructure.
Because of the costs.
I mean, we've even discussed giving it to a developer and letting them do it, but it's just so prohibitively expensive. So one of the things that does work, you know, there are a couple of grant programs in the state of Minnesota that I was involved in. One is for infrastructure and one is for market rate workforce housing. So back to the fraud. How do we connect all these things? There's literally hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud in housing that's happening in the state of Minnesota. Just think if some of those hundreds of millions of dollars were given to a place like Roseau or Babbitt, and what we could do with that. When we opened the last apartment building in Roseau in 2000 and, I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact date, a few years ago, we filled it almost within 2 months. 80% of the people that moved into that apartment building came from outside of the state of Minnesota. So we're not just rearranging the furniture on the deck, we're bringing new people to Minnesota for good manufacturing jobs. And oh, by the way, about 50% of all the manufacturing that takes place in Minnesota takes place in rural Minnesota. So why is it important to support rural communities who are struggling with housing and so forth, so they can attract and retain employees to work at places like Polaris and Marvin? I have the greatest honor to represent some of these outfits, some of these companies. And I've asked rhetorically many times for the last 15 years, why is it that when so many of our anchor businesses in Minnesota get the opportunity to grow and expand, that expansion comes in places like Grafton, North Dakota, Fargo, North Dakota, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Spirit Lake, Iowa, Huntsville, Alabama? We need to reset how we feel about business and people that work at these businesses and come up with some solutions that are actually going to work to put people into our grocery stores and into an apartment and into a home that works. And in Roseau, you know, we, in terms of Section 8 or subsidized housing, whatever you want to call it, we have a surplus of that right now. But we don't have a surplus of single-family units in an apartment or single-family homes. We've recently signed an agreement with a land trust. We've donated 4 lots to the land trust. They're going to put 3 single-family homes on them. Local contractor is building them and slab on grade, and hopefully for a couple $100,000, they're going to be able to get into that building. But those are the types of solutions that we're looking for, and we're calling on the governor and the legislature, you know, to start watching your bobber, and maybe this time when it goes down, you set the hook. Thank you.
Good job. Just for brevity, we're going to quickly go through these graphs that I had mocked up and got data from. All the data has been cited. First off, we're going to look at the share of household income claimed by the state of Minnesota government graph. Let me
Sorry.
explain what this chart is showing because it gets right to why people feel the squeeze. This chart compares state government spending per household to what the typical Minnesota household actually earns, adjusted for inflation. To do this, we take the total state government spending and divide it by the number of households in Minnesota, which is about 2.3 million households based on the U.S. Census Bureau estimate. That gives a simple apple-to-apples way to show how large state government has become per household, and then compare that to real median household income, or what families can actually afford after inflation. Here are the numbers. In 2018, total state government spending worked out to be about $16,800 per household. At that time, real median household income was about $88,300. This means that state government was roughly spending 19% of a typical household's income. Let's fast forward to 2024. Using that same 2.3 million household estimate, state government spending has grown about $25,300 per household. Meanwhile, real median household income is at about $92,000, essentially flat once inflation is accounted for. So today, state government spending is equivalent to more than 27%. State spending, 27% of a typical household income is going right to the state of Minnesota.
Exactly.
That squeeze Minnesotans are feeling.
Exactly.
In just 6 years, government spending per household increased by $8,500 while household income barely moved an inch. Government got significantly bigger, but families did not get significantly richer.
Yeah, exactly.
The share of household income claimed by Minnesota state government graph shows exactly why city budgets are under so much pressure. That's the right one. Under so much pressure. When state government spends and grows about $16,800 to $25,300 per household, using roughly 2.3 million households, it takes a much bigger bite out of family incomes. Households now have less room to absorb costs, but city expenses do not slow down. So cities are squeezed from both sides. Residents that can't afford higher property taxes or fees, and local governments still have to fund public safety, infrastructure, and basic services. Next graph. The Minnesota spending concentration graph. This graph shows how fast different parts of state government are growing, not how large they are in raw dollars. Every spending category is indexed at the same point, starting in 2018 equals 100 for equal math. Each line represents a major area of state government spending, such as health and human services, which many mayors tapped on, which is the dark blue, very top line. Look how much that has skyrocketed since 2020, outpacing all the other departments of Minnesota state government. And that's exactly where we are seeing the most fraud come out of is HHS. In 2018, health and human services spending has grown about 155 on the index, meaning it has increased by roughly 55% since 2018. Education spending has grown to about 135, or roughly 35% growth over the period, and administrative spending is up to about 134 on that index, 34% since 2018. The spending concentration graph shows why city budgets are getting squeezed once again. Since 2018, the fastest growth in spending has been in permanent programs like HHS, education, and administration, up by roughly 30 to 55%. Those costs are locked in to the state budget, which leaves less room for local aid and pushes more mandates and costs down to cities and taxpayers. Cities still have to deliver police, fire, roads, utilities, but they have far fewer revenue options. So when the state expands the hardest to cut programs out of government, cities feel it first, through tighter budgets, higher property taxes, and more pressure on local services. The last graph we'll take a peek at is the Minnesota state government spending trend break graph. This graph shows total state government spending by year alongside year-over-year growth rate, so we can see not just how much the state spent, but how fast we were spending it, or they were spending it. Mayors can hardly spend anything, so how much the state was spending it. From 2018 to 2022, the spending graph, even including COVID, followed a relatively contained pattern. State spending grew from about $38.7 billion in 2018 to roughly $49.2 billion in 2022. That's roughly $10.5 billion over 4 years, with annual growth generally in the 3rd to 5th% range, aside from the pandemic year. What happens after 2022 is key, folks. In 2023, spending jumped from $49.2 billion to $52.4 billion, about $3.2 billion in 1 year.
More
1 year, or 6.5% growth. Then in fiscal year 2024, spending surged again from $52.4 billion to $58.3 billion, nearly $6 billion in another single year.
Yeah.
Or more than 11% growth over the last previous year. Let's just put it simply. Minnesota added almost $9 billion in new annual spending in 2 years. That's the trend break. And this wasn't random and it wasn't temporary. We see exactly where the money went. Health and Human Services, now about 35% of the general fund, up from roughly 29% previously stated. In 2024 alone, Minnesota spent about $18.5 billion on medical assistance or Medicaid, much of it ongoing. Education, where lawmakers add more than $2.2 billion through K-12 education, special education, and early childhood programs during the 2023 legislative session. Now for what? I don't know, because I don't see our grade point averages on the rise here in the state of Minnesota.
Oh no.
Other core government functions, including public services, agency operations, and infrastructure, which added billions more in ongoing spending in fiscal year 2024 and 2025 budget cycle. The Minnesota state graph once again shows why city budgets are feeling the squeeze in this department as well. After 2022, the state added nearly $9 billion in permanent annual spending, locked up budget flexibility. That leaves less room for local aid and pushes more costs and mandates onto cities, which then show up as higher property taxes, tighter budgets, or cuts to local services. Let me close with this. Minnesota has always been strongest when the government remembers who it works for. Not special interests, not political insiders, but the people. The families who get up early, work hard, raise their kids, run small businesses, serve their neighbors, and only ask that their government be honest, competent, and fair. For generations, Minnesotans have believed in a simple bargain. If you play by the rules, your government will too. That your tax dollars will be respected, safeguarded, and used wisely. That fraud will be confronted, not ignored. And that failure at the top will not be passed down to communities that did everything right. What we are asking for today is not extreme. It's not partisan, and it's not unreasonable. It's accountability, it's fiscal responsibility, and it's leadership, true leadership. Government does not exist to grow itself. It exists to serve the people. And when waste is tolerated, when fraud is allowed to fester, and when costs are shifted instead of solved, it is the duty of local leaders closest to the people to step forward and say this is not acceptable. That is why mayors are here today, to restore common sense. We are the ones who balance real budgets, respond to real emergencies, and answer directly to our neighbors. We know what works, because when something doesn't, our communities feel it indefinitely. Mr. Governor, Governor Walz, we may not always share the same philosophy, and we may not disagree on the size, scope, and direction of government, but disagreement does not require division. It requires dialogue. This year's legislative session is based on drafting policy. We are not here asking for money, handouts, or subsidies. I implore you, Governor, I implore House and Senate leadership to meet with this group of mayors. Sit down with us. Listen to what we are seeing on the ground. Hear directly from the leaders who are balancing, once again, real budgets and not monopoly money, responding to real crises and answering to real people every single day.
Right.
We are not coming into this building with slogans or talking points. We are coming with lived experience, hard numbers, and a shared responsibility to protect the people that we all serve. It is about stewardship and accountability, and it is about doing right by Minnesotans before the cost of inaction grows even higher. Minnesota can do a lot better, folks, because we have seen better. We have been there. With honest oversight, disciplined spending, and the courage to confront failure instead of deflecting it, this state can once again be a place where opportunity grows, trust in government is restored, and government earns back the confidence in its people. That is our message. That is our commitment. And that is why we will continue to speak up, stand together, and push for common sense reform until accountability is restored and Minnesota is back on the right path. And if accountability will not come from the top, it will rise from local city mayors. Thank you all for once again being here, and thank you, mayors, for standing with me and doing this together.
This is a redress. You gotta redress.
Is there any quick questions? Anything?
They put it out.
Yep.
They must freaking.
No, that was the last deal. I implored the governor as well as Senate and House leadership to meet exactly with this group of mayors here to hear firsthand what we are facing and what we are seeing and how this fraud is affecting the backs of our Minnesotan constituents and residents.
Yep.
Well, I've sent letters numerous times. I haven't gotten a response. I've hardly gotten a response from legislators that I've sent the continued letter that continues to grow with signatures. I've heard from maybe 5. Where are you? Where are you guys? Where are our legislators? You know, they're talking about combating fraud. But when we're talking as a group of mayors, raising the flag, saying we are here to help and we will help in any which way we can, where are you? We haven't seen you. I have talked to my local legislators. They're saying they are talking about it in their caucuses.
What?
Exactly. What does that mean? Oh, what kind of legislation are you going to be drafting? Oh, we're working on that. We're working on that. Maybe it's political strategy. I don't know. But where are you?
It's frustrating having been a former.
Come on, Dan.
It's frustrating having been a former legislator, knowing that as a legislator, oftentimes I was viewed by other, I'll say bureaucrats, as somebody who's just occupying that chair for a while, and then I'm going to be gone. Legislature has no authority to subpoena
or prosecutor,
or we have no enforcement power whatsoever. We can't do any of that stuff. All we can do is raise our voices in many cases. Well, we can try to do some tinkering with the budget, you know, to get people to come to their senses a little bit. But we can't even have people come into a committee hearing and swear an oath that what they're about to say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So the system is stacked against, you know, they talk about, you know, the 3 parts of government. The legislature is basically the weakest. The attorney general and the executive branch, they have all kinds of authority to enforce and prosecute and those types of things. The governor can dictate policy out to his agencies. We can hope for that, but that's why it's so important to make sure that our voices are getting heard, and maybe we can change some of that. I don't know. I can tell you that, I won't get into that.
They are starting some legislation. They are starting some legislation, but they are starting it. I will give them that. I will give them that they did initiate and did draft and did start some legislation. Now, personally, Dan, I don't know what that entails to you, what they have started. I mean, I know you're out of it. But the bills that are going to committees, I don't necessarily know what they say or what they stand.
Right.
But it would be nice to be
Common
told
sense,
by our
are they gonna
legislators
be
what
saying-
exactly are in those bills.
Maybe following whatever rules there
Go ahead, Nate.
currently are.
I can add too. I just want to point out that the obvious and a lot of the phenomenal data that
good for these
Jackson was just
guys,
presenting. A lot of those increases and a lot of that spending occurred within the last handful of years. You know, it's within those last handful of years that a lot of these unfunded mandates, the biggest ones and the ones that were just completely, pun intended, half-baked, that are really causing a lot of the angst and the stress on our local cities are during the same time that all this spending skyrocketed. And so it can't be ignored that there's a certain majority that needs to step up. And we can yell, kick, and scream all we want, and that's just about the extent of what we can do.
That's right.
But it takes the people that are in charge to actually say, okay, we're listening, and then do something about it. But they are willfully ignoring it because it goes against the agenda that they passed over the last 4 or 5 years.
This should be a nonpartisan issue where every legislator from every party is jumping on board to draft policy to combat fraud. Is there any other? Did you have another thing? No. Okay.
I'm just wondering if you all have any more specifics on part of the deal before you mentioned it's not a budget year, but you know what mandates are particularly troubling for you, and is there any specific bill that you would support as has to do with combating fraud?
I mean, we have ideas, but that is the sole responsibility of who we elected as our legislators to draft said policy in terminology that is understood. You know, I don't exactly know how that would look, but I mean, there's unfunded mandates every day that are impacting cities. You know, there's water treatment facilities that Mayor Francis has to look at, that our good friend in Lexington has to deal with, where we're having to bring up water treatment facilities to state code that could be 80 years old, but it costing $100 million. There's no way in heck you can make that money up. I mean, even if there was an option to impose a sales tax, local option sales tax, that still doesn't make up for the costs of what these mandates are costing. I mean, there's carbon mandates that are good mayor up in, help me out, Becker are dealing with, are phasing those plants out. I mean, that's a huge one for that community. Paid family medical leave is an example. Wow. Yes, it might sound great, but I mean, where's the money coming from?
Exactly.
That's hardly a tax to cover everybody that's going to be jumping on it and is already abusing the program.
Yes.
I mean, we have just Cross Lake alone. We've passed $10,300 some odd dollars right to our constituents just to pay for roughly 50 employees for paid family medical leave. I mean, the unfunded mandates just keep coming.
I agree, dude.
I want to see the state do exactly what they expect local governments to do. Figure it out and learn how to budget better.
Right.
We have to cut, whether it's services, employees, hours,
do what you got to do.
Entire departments. We have to make those cuts. We have to make those hard decisions in order to make sure that we have a budget and a tax levy that is affordable for our people. I want to see the state doing the exact same thing.
Exactly.
I want to see people getting fired and held accountable. I want to see cuts to these bloated state programs and state departments.
This is taking too long.
Cut back on the budget, not add to it.
Taking too fucking long.
Billions of dollars. The budget shouldn't be growing when we're in an affordability crisis. The budget should be shrinking. And that's what we want to see. Those are the same expectations we get held to by the state auditor. They make sure that we're doing that right. Okay. Who's not watching the state to make sure that the state's doing it right?
No, yeah.
I would just hop in and then we'll wrap it up.
Just one thing to your question. There hasn't been any discussion, and we'd like to know about clawback opportunities, where if ever those dollars could be clawed back and put back into the system. That's not talked about at all, and that would be something, again, that I think we could all agree on, that our constituents are asking, how do we get some of that money back?
Thank you. More to come in the upcoming weeks. Thank you, everybody.
There we go. It's going to get that is only going to grow. I'm telling you, you guys. I'm telling you. Anyways, okay. Well, let me see. Wait, what else do we got here? Let's put that back up there. Hold on. Share screen. Coalition of Mayors. Okay, so let's pull that back up and let's see what's next. Because I'm kind of curious. I did not watch the news on I wanted to see this. Apparently they banned or they put a pause on gender affirming care for minors in Minnesota. Well, oh my God, you guys. Just hearing these words, it's so painful that they even need to say them. You know what I mean? Creeps. This is what the Book of Giants talks about. These angels doing experiments on humans and animals and stuff like that. You guys. Well, they started mating with these animals and creating these hybrid weird things and these beasts. That's why, God had to come and everything got so corrupt. Everything got super creepy. And so God had to take care of it. And it's very interesting. Oh, do we need to revisit the Book of Enoch? Because let me tell you, that is a very hold on, let's see where we got some action here. Here you go. What's this guy? Here we go. Wow. 12 minutes in.
My name is Rep. Leash Kozlowski Ozawa Anaquad. Yellow Cloud is my Ojibwe name. I use they, them pronouns. I'm really proud to represent Duluth and also
the
a
minister-
two-spirit person and the
Did he just say two-spirit person? Well, guys, here we go. Here we go. This right here is a Native American. I don't know what tribe he's from, but he's about to tell us. I'm just going to guess here. He's a two-spirit person. You know what that is? A transgender person. Like they have more. Oh, that's what that means. Okay, in Native American speak, and that is interesting because even the natives call them that and have for a very long time. So there must be some sort of truth to all of this stuff. I mean, you know what I mean? I guess to what that there's some sort of a spirit out there, a two-spirit. Okay, and I don't know. We're gonna have to do a study on that. How about we do that? I think that's a good idea. Let's do that sometime, maybe tonight. I don't know.
trans non-binary person, member of our caucus here.
Oh,
We're here
okay.
because
Hold on.
good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
We're gonna
my
put
name
that
is
on
Rep. Leash
regular.
Kozlowski Ozawa Anaquad. Yellow Cloud is my Ojibwe name. I use they, them pronouns. I'm really
No. We're gonna start right over on that one. Normal speed. Start over. I gotta listen. I'm gonna shut up.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rep. Leash Kozlowski Ozawa Anaquad. Yellow Cloud is my Ojibwe name. I use they, them pronouns. I'm really proud to represent Duluth and also a proud two-spirit person and the trans non-binary person, member of our caucus here. We're here because, as you know, Children's Minnesota is one of a handful of pediatric hospitals across the country facing relentless federal intimidation, including threats of investigation, revoked funding, and even potential civil or criminal penalties. Their decision that was announced yesterday to pause certain gender-affirming care services is a direct result of these escalating federal campaign attacks to punish hospitals for doing exactly what every hospital should be doing, and that is providing evidence-based, life-saving care to patients and families. We're gathered here as lawmakers, as community leaders, and most importantly, families and children who are deeply disappointed and gutted by this decision nonetheless, and it has sent shockwaves across our state and across the country. And I just want to say to every single trans, non-binary, two-spirit youth out there, you have every right to feel sad, to feel heartbroken, and to feel pissed off. That's right. You are loved and lovable, and you deserve the care just as any other kid in this state, in this country deserves. Children's has been a beacon of hope and joy, providing compassionate, evidence-based care to youth and families, rooted in body autonomy, care, compassion, and belonging. And I will say that as representing Greater Minnesota and families who have come seeking refuge across the country, this will have an outsized impact. Even a so-called temporary pause causes massive disruptions.
Want to fillet children.
Care,
off body
trust
parts
between patients and providers and the families, and it really causes our families to have to scramble for alternatives and overall drives them further away from healthcare, where we already face massive discrimination. This is a profoundly heavy and dangerous moment that we're gathered here as our community continues to face aggressive efforts to be erased. This is nothing more than that coordinated federal attack, and representatives and others will talk more about that, but this is really political theater. It's the same political theater against our kids and our families as this government is caging and detaining our children here in Minnesota and kids of color and immigrant children. Gender affirming care is a wide umbrella from social support to self-expression. In some cases, there's puberty delaying medication that allows kids to just breathe and hit the pause button that they need to make the best decisions for themselves, to feel home in their body. This is life affirming and life saving care. And as someone who uses gender affirming care in both the Twin Ports to here in the Twin Cities, I know the extreme joy and relief at taking those steps and actually being able to receive the care that you need to feel home in yourself.
We'll be listening
That
to the
first
Book of Giants
affirming
after this
haircut
episode, or
to
right after
having
this.
your pronouns and name affirmed, to that first dose of HRT and being able to feel like my body is my own. That is what our children are experiencing and waiting in anticipation. And unfortunately, that is what this administration and what politicians out there are trying to rip them away from. I also want to acknowledge the stress that families are enduring of having to go to multiple clinics, having to go to multiple pharmacies, to blood draws, and all of that that gets in the way. I'll say shame on this administration for wagering the lives of our nation's youth for political gain. When children tell us who they are, we should listen, we should love up on them and support them. The other message that we want to send today, in addition to a call to action, is that gender affirming care remains legal, best practice, and evidence-based. Our laws are strong, our values are clear, and our commitment is unshakable. We will fight to the bitter end to protect our trans youth. I've been reflecting a lot as a Mexican and Ojibwe person in this time that we've been raising alarms that attacks on us are attacks that are going to land on your doorstep next, and they are here. If this administration and officials are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to attack our healthcare for trans people and entrenching regressive norms, then those same people and corporations are hoping you don't notice when they're raising everybody's healthcare, sabotaging our public good, and compromising everybody's well-being. So pay attention. We need you all in. For anybody who is a person of good conscience and goodwill in Minnesota, to our institutions, to our hospitals, to elected leaders everywhere.
Yeah.
Stand up against this tyranny that is happening on our lands and on our people. Match.
Okay, are you saying it? Wait. Are you saying that your Ojibwe people are? No, you don't. Did you get approval from the elders to say this? Sir, did the elders approve you saying this openly about the peoples? I'm just curious because I'm gonna say nope.
Bravery of Minnesotans.
I'm gonna
speak up,
money
fight back while you still can.
They would be
for our
appalled.
freedom and yours. We are grateful in Minnesota to have many leaders standing
go
up,
outside of
leaders
the-
like Hannah Edwards, who
no.
are also supporting our families, and I want to invite her up to the podium next.
Wow.
Hello, everyone.
Wow.
My name is Hannah Edwards. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the mom of two amazing daughters,
They
and
would
my
say that's
oldest
what
daughter
happened-
is
Never mind.
trans. I'm also the executive director of Transforming Families Minnesota. We're Minnesota's largest support network for trans and gender expansive youth and their families. I stand here today representing over 1,000 group members in our private community. Many of them would be here to share their stories themselves, but it's not really safe for our families to speak out publicly. So I'm here to share how this pause in care affects our trans children and our families. I want to start by saying that we love our doctors who provide gender affirming care. We build deep, trusting relationships with them, often over the span of many years. These doctors listen to our children. They help guide our families in making thoughtful, healthy decisions about medically necessary gender-affirming healthcare and our children's futures, all based in best practice and medical standards. These decisions are life-saving. What we do not appreciate is the intimidation that HHS and the federal government are placing
by a
on our
demon.
physicians and our care providers.
Ma'am.
We also do not
Ma'am,
accept what
sorry.
this pause in care represents.
You
what those
really have
physicians
nobody
or
really
we
wants
as
to hear what you got to
parents
say
know
now.
be best practice.
At
We as
least I know I
parents do not
don't.
accept that this pause
And
was inevitable.
not
but
to be
it's acceptable
rude, but
conduct
to
from
be
our healthcare
rude.
providers. Even if this pause is temporary, whether it lasts
You're
weeks,
you're
months,
possessed by
or
a demon.
longer, it will
I
have
can't really
real and
listen to
detrimental
this.
effects on our children. I'd like to
What,
share
your
some of the
children?
reactions
How many
of our
kids you got,
Transforming Families
ma'am?
group members
Ma'am,
to the news of children's
how many
pausing
children
parts
do
of
you
their
have?
programming with you
I'm
now.
curious. How
I'm
many are
tired
transgender? How many?
when youth said to her
Hold it.
parents when
What's
they
this
learned
broad
about this
name?
pause in care.
Wait, what's this broad's
They're
name?
tired because this is just another
Yeah, wait,
institution
we're gonna find out.
which has determined
Go
it's
back.
too hard to continue to
Let's go
care
find out
and
about
support
this
for them,
ma'am.
said their parent.
What was her name? Let's just find out here. I'm sorry, you guys. We're at 2035. Remember that 2035. We'll come back, but we're gonna go. Let's go find her name.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah Edwards.
Hannah, let me write this down. All right, Hannah, hold on. You gotta get my. All these freaking pencils are gone with no lead. Hello. Okay. What was it? Hannah Edwards? How is that spelled? Is that with 2 N's and an H or? Okay, let's see. Let's continue.
I use she, her pronouns. I'm the mom of 2 amazing daughters, and my oldest daughter is trans. I'm also the executive director of
How old is your oldest daughter?
Transforming Families Minnesota. We're Minnesota's largest support network for trans and gender expansive youth and their families. I stand here today representing over 1,000 group members in our private community. Many of them would be here to share their stories
Ma'am,
themselves.
where are you
but
from?
It's not really safe
Where?
for our
Wait,
families to
where?
speak out publicly. So I'm here to share the largest support network for trans and gender expansive youth and their families. I stand here today representing over 1,000 group members in our private community. Many of them would be here to share their stories themselves, but it's not really safe for our families to speak out publicly. So I'm here to share how this pause in care affects our trans children and our families. I want to start by saying that we love our doctors who provide gender affirming care. We build deep, trusting relationships with them, often over the span of many years. These doctors.
So there's a
listen to our
cult of
children. They help
1,000.
guide our families in making thoughtful, healthy decisions about medically necessary gender affirming healthcare and our children's futures, all based in best practice and medical standards. These decisions are life-saving. What we do not appreciate is the intimidation that HHS and the federal government are placing on our physicians and our care providers.
You know what this sounds like to me?
We also do not accept.
You know what this makes it sound like? Is a Satanist defending putting up a big freaking display in the middle of the Capitol. And you remember that? In the rotunda of the Capitol, big Satanist display. Free speech? You know. Oh, Father God, help us. Lord, we're praying. Lord, you know what? This morning, I think it was this morning. I don't know. Every day I try to put something out like pray for Minnesota, that kind of stuff, because seriously, people need to pray for us. We are surrounded by demons. These people are possessed by demons and they don't even know it. Now she's telling me there's 1,000 families. There's a network of 1,000 of these people in Minnesota that think that their children are, it's okay. They're allowing children to mutilate their bodies instead of waiting until they're 18 to make those decisions as an adult. We're not that, instead of addressing other, maybe, no, I reject it. I refuse that. No, I reject anything I'm sorry. I can't do it. I can't, this broad.
That this pause in care represents
No.
what those physicians or we as parents know to be best practice. We as parents do not accept that this pause was inevitable or that
Using your children like
from our
this,
healthcare
mutilating
providers.
their bodies.
Even if this pause is temporary, whether it lasts weeks, months, or longer, it will have real and detrimental effects on our children. I'd like to share some of the reactions of our Transforming Families group members to the news of children's pausing parts of their programming with you now. I'm tired, one youth said to her parents when they learned about this pause in care. They're tired because this is just another institution which has determined it's too hard to continue to care and support for them, said their parent. I want everyone to think about just how much our trans children have faced in this last year from the federal government. If you haven't been paying attention, it's more than most people will face in their lifetime. Our kids deserve access to healthcare that helps them thrive.
You know what? You can find somebody for trans care, but you can't find somebody for child care. Yeah. You know what? You can't find anybody to speak out for their child. I mean, and one lady did speak before Congress. One lady spoke before Congress. She went there and did the right thing. And she's like, you know, and she brought her autistic son. Where's your daughter? Where's your tranny daughter? Huh? It's a mental illness, ma'am. You wouldn't put her on display, now would you? You would seek help, getting her some mental help. If you have daughters, are you saying that they were born a boy and is that what you're saying? Because if it was born if you're, ma'am, too many questions, ma'am.
Instead of constantly being questioned, delayed, or paused. No wonder they're tired. Yet another parent who just moved to Minnesota in this last year after we passed Trans Refuge said, "This is what we moved to Minnesota to avoid. Our family uprooted our entire lives to get to a place."
Oh, yeah, to come here for the fucking fraud, huh, bitch? Because you got Ellison standing right behind you. How about fuck you? Oh, my God. You got to be kidding me. I'm sorry, this is real-time reaction. First time I've heard this.
The Trans Refuge Law, to a place where we could access our child's health care without disruption. I want everyone in this room to also know that this is not a small number of people. We have dozens and dozens of families in this position who've just moved here and more coming. Families who left behind jobs, schools, support systems, and their entire world just to get their child to safety. And now they're having to relive that trauma once again, fearing for the stability and protection of their child's care. Another caregiver in our private Facebook group posted hours after the announcement, "I just called the place suggested for continuity of care by Children's, and we can't be seen for an intake for another 3 months." When you're living with dysphoria, being told you must wait months after finally finding a provider you trust is not neutral. It is harmful. Interrupting care and severing established relationships with providers puts our trans children at risk. Children knows the impact of their decision will be severe. That is why they sent the number for the National Suicide Hotlines with their MyChart message announcing the pause.
Yeah, you're conditioning them to do that rather than giving them other avenues.
Are our trans children just trying to live their lives?
No,
and all of us
no,
parents
ma'am.
who are doing
No,
everything in
ma'am.
our power.
God don't make mistakes. Not like that, ma'am. You're obviously not a Christian. And unfortunately, that makes you easily manipulated. You can be manipulated. I don't care if you believe in God or not. God's real, and so is Satan. Satan's very real and is able to really convince societies of lies. We believe things and we act on things based on lies. And ma'am, you've been lied to. And she, it's hard for people to get to the point in their lives where they're like, God, I was lied to. It's hard to come to grips with. That's what Minnesota's dealing with. The innocent people in Minnesota, they're like, I've been lied to. Everything's been nothing but a lie in my, everything. I've been ripped off. I've been victimized. This is how the innocent in Minnesota feel. This ma'am, she's upset because she can't get gender for go. You know what? You just moved here. It's not a big deal. Just pick up and go. Just go to another state then. Just go to another state that does it. You go to another state, ma'am, because this state ain't going to do that no more because it's gross. It's gross. You don't do that to children. Who mutilates a child? Who in their right mind as an adult says, yeah, I'm going to change my child's gender? What kind of freaking person does that? Unless if their child's having some mental issues, so is their parent, okay, at that fucking point. Ma'am, sit down. Ma'am.
to protect our trans children whose
Ma'am.
bodies, mental health, and futures
I'm
are
sorry.
directly
I'm gonna
affected
get some
by
hate
these
for
threats.
this. I'm
Trans youth
totally
are
gonna get
not
some hate for this.
abstract talking
You know what?
points.
But it is what it
They're
is.
not political experiments. They are children who know themselves.
Oh, but they're human experiments. Wait, they're not political experiments, but they sure enough are human experiments, aren't they? Aren't they, ma'am?
Children who are supported and loved by their families, who deserve stability, dignity, and access to their medically recommended care. Make no mistake that
No,
that
we're
care
gonna
being
need
paused or
some of
threatened
those
is
doctors, aren't
harming
we?
our trans children, and they're who's
What's
carrying
that
this burden.
doctor's name?
If we truly
Ma'am,
care about
I need
children's
that.
well-being,
Did she say her doctor's name?
then we must center the voices of those trans youth and the parents who aren't here today, and be brave enough to continue standing up for their access to care. We must listen to
Maybe
families
God's
who
working
trust
on those
their children,
families.
and we
Maybe
must
God's
trust our
giving them a
doctors rather
pause.
than forcing
Maybe
them
God's
to
giving them a
preemptively make
reprieve, giving them a
decisions
second
that go
chance
against
at
their Hippocratic oath.
taking another
I
shot
am glad
at
to
life
stand in
in
this
a different
community with
way.
all of those gathered here today.
It doesn't
who
involve
are
a
working
knife.
to ensure that our children have access to the care that they need without fear of interruption or political interference. I want children, trans children, and parents to know that you're not alone. We all will continue working
All
toward
the
a future
demons
where
will
every young
continue to
person
collectively
can
work.
access affirming care
I'm
without
translating.
interruption or fear. Up next, I am
Evil
really
speak.
pleased to introduce Jess Braverman from Gender Justice.
Oh, here we go.
Good
Oh,
morning, everyone. My name is Jess Braverman, and I'm the legal director at Gender Justice here in St. Paul, Minnesota. I want to start by making it clear that gender-affirming medical care
oh,
continues to be
geez.
legal in the
Here
state
we
of
go.
Minnesota.
What
That
the
includes
fuck?
prescriptions for
Okay, hold on.
puberty-suppressing
No. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, Lord. Oh my God. Lord. Dear God. No way. No flipping way. No way. Oh my God. You guys, it's so hard. It's so hard.
medications and hormones for trans kids. To the public who may not understand gender-affirming medical care, the federal government has spent years demonizing trans kids and their parents, terrorizing their
Because
medical
they're
providers, and misleading
demon
you
possessed.
about what gender-affirming medical care is.
It's a
the medications we are talking about today, puberty.
That's like slapping God in the face. God's word says that you were made, you were beautifully and wonderfully made. You're made the way he wanted you made, not the way that you wanted you made. Now you're creating, okay. Here we go. There's temporary cosmetics is best. Temporary cosmetics. That's why the Lord gave us temporary cosmetics. Okay? If you want to do, that's why they had transvestites. I'm just saying. When you have transvestites, at least it's just makeup and clothes, whatever. Okay? You know what? There was glam rock. There was glam rock in the 80s. What do you expect? All that kind of stuff happened. It actually talks about fancy clothing in the Bible. And actually, there's such a study on the fancy clothing. I can't even get into that. There is an actual biblical study on fancy clothing. And I won't go into it, but basically, you know what? We do have fancy clothing. It's all temporary. We're not cutting parts off. And when stuff like that started happening, and like I said, we're going to listen to the book of Giants right after. It's like 15 minutes. That's it. And then after that, I'm done. But oh my God, I don't even know if I can watch the rest of this. It's very curious.
Medications and hormones are regularly prescribed to kids who are not transgender. It is only transgender kids who are losing access to these safe and effective medications. And this loss is devastating to the impacted families.
I'm
and
glad.
The physicians who the federal government is attacking for providing this health care are the same physicians families trust every day all across the state.
This is a girl.
Other pediatric hormonal conditions such as diabetes and thyroid conditions. The medications are not dangerous. The physicians are not dangerous. What is dangerous is the federal government insisting on creating crisis after crisis in the state of Minnesota while offering no aid and no solutions. And so I want to be clear about what's happening that led up to the decision by Children's, and I'm not doing this to explain the harm of the pain of the families is real. The harm they've experienced is real. I'm only bringing this up because I want the public to understand what has been happening here. The federal government has attempted to withhold funding from Children's Minnesota, a hospital families rely on for gender affirming care, for cancer care, for trauma care, for bereavement support for families who have lost children and who are grieving. They're threatening to withhold that care unless Children's Minnesota agrees to stop providing best practice medical care for trans youth. Depriving families of life-saving care does absolutely nothing to make healthcare more affordable, more accessible, or more equitable for anyone in the state of Minnesota. And to the trans kids and their parents impacted by this decision by Children's Minnesota, I spent a really long time trying to write something that would fill this void and address this. I have no words. This is horrifying. It is really hard to find a medical provider that you trust. It is really hard when that trust gets damaged. We at Gender Justice, we believe that gender affirming medical care is mainstream medical care. It should remain in mainstream medical care. It should not be separated out and put in separate clinics.
Ma'am.
We'll do everything we can to ensure that the providers who
No, ma'am.
continue to provide that care can continue to provide it in Minnesota, and to make sure the pause by Children's Minnesota that they announced is temporary is actually temporary, and that care can resume. Thank you.
Ma'am. No, okay.
No introduction. I couldn't even try.
Well, thank you,
Here's
Jess.
Keith
and,
Ellison. Let's hear what
thanks
this
to,
ding dong has to say.
Leash, and thanks to Hannah. And I want to apologize in the beginning. I have to leave right after my remarks. My apologies. But it's beyond.
He's got to head out.
That
He ain't got
even
time
one
to discuss
hospital or
this.
one
It's not that
doctor,
important.
Has been put in this position. And we cannot forget why or where the pressure is coming from. The federal government has its eye on Minnesota ever since Trump's inauguration over a year ago now. This is part of their ongoing attack on our state, our values, and our institutions. They don't like that we take care of our kids here, that we feed them at school, that we provide them with daycare, and we offer them life-saving care that gender-affirming care is so often is. And so they ratchet up the pressure on our institutions, which forces them into decisions that they seemed like beyond belief just about a year ago, decisions made out of very, very human fears. And this is the Trump administration's playbook, everyone. I could very well be at the same podium talking about what they're doing to immigrant communities. And here we are talking about transgender communities and our fellow Minnesotans. But it's their playbook. Coercion, threats, bullying. They don't like how we vote, so they cut our funding, or try to. We've been blocking them on that. They don't like the fact that we welcome immigrants, so they send 3,500 armed people to wave guns and even kill our
Wow.
They don't like how we approach children's health care, so they threaten our hospitals. Bullying and blustering is just standard operating procedures.
You see who they're choosing as their victims? Do you see?
Minnesotans are
Who
smart enough,
everybody who's benefiting
enough
from
to
all this
know
fraud.
how to
That's who
handle
they're
bullies.
choosing. Everybody who's benefiting from the
We saw
fraud.
it when tens of
The
thousands
bullshit.
came out to protest the illegal.
Oh yeah, don't get
occupation
me
of our
started.
state.
Your little
We
special
see it
interest.
every day in the way people are looking out for their neighbors, doing mutual aid, and standing up to this tyranny. And I hope you can see it in the way that my office has been holding this administration accountable in court nearly every day. We will do it again and again every single time, including and especially when it comes to our transgender youth. I think it was late last December, RFK Jr.
He's the attorney
issued
general.
his
Why wouldn't
so-called
you be there
declaration
at court?
to
You
try
know?
to limit access to gender affirming care for young people, threatening to punish any doctors, hospitals, and clinics that continue to provide it. We took him to court as part of a coalition of 20 states to block his declaration. But let me point out the obvious. It is beyond absurd for this man who has never spent 1 second inside of anybody's medical school or practicing medicine or in a clinic to get up and declare what is good and bad medicine. He doesn't know. I don't know, maybe it's proximity to power. Maybe it's the worm thing, I don't know. But it's broken. Something going on up there. And let me point out how repugnant it is that a man who was born with every conceivable privilege, every privilege that any human being could ever possibly aspire to, uses that privilege to stomp on kids. It's repulsive. It's disgusting.
What the
and we'll never stand for
Dude, shut up.
March 6th is just 1 month from now. We have a critical hearing on our motion for summary judgment in our lawsuit against RFK's declaration. We also have a commitment in writing from DHS that they will pause enforcing the declaration for 30 days after the hearing next month. If the judge rules in our favor, and I am very confident that they will, I expect that they will, and we win our case, a win for the rule of law, a win for young people for whom gender-affirming care is life-affirming care. That's what it will represent. When we win, because I'm just going to claim it now, this pause in care from children must end. Must. So I want the trans community, my dear friends and neighbors who I claim as my own.
All the demons and their
and I
little
want them
demon
to know
friends.
that we will never back down. We're nowhere near being tired, and we will stand with them every single step of the way.
Oh my God.
And that's all I got to say.
Pray for these people. That's all we can do, you guys. We need to pray. Oh, here we go. Oh, geez, here we go. Oh my God. Another Minnesota legislator, guys.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lee Finke. I use she, her pronouns. I represent District 66A in the Minnesota House of Representatives. I don't love following our Attorney General, but everything he said stands. So just a few weeks ago, I stood at this podium and talked about this administration's trans eradication policy in America. We have seen the revocation of our federal recognition across all law. We have seen discrimination protections dismantled in more than half of US states. We have seen trans people and trans children targeted, lied about, scapegoated, and more. This is happening for a very specific purpose. This administration wants trans people gone. I say this not to justify what is happening to our healthcare, but to set the appropriate landscape for us to understand a decision like that which was made by Children's Minnesota. Children's has been put in an impossible situation by a ruthless administration that is trying to destroy their entire hospital practice. We have seen similar decisions by children's hospitals around the country because hospitals, providers, medical groups, insurance companies, and every other lever of the medical establishment is being pressured to stop providing gender-affirming medical health care to trans kids. This has been a long time coming in Minnesota. In 2023, in order to protect transgender children and adults and their access to gender-affirming care, the Minnesota Queer Caucus, along with our DFL colleagues, support from Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, built the strongest trans refuge state in America. We did this because gender-affirming care is medically necessary, life-saving health care. We did this because in Minnesota, we protect our most vulnerable communities.
No, it's not medically necessary. Why is it medically necessary? People won't want it. It's a desire. It's not a necessity. Whatever.
Just look at what is happening right now in our streets. We stand together in Minnesota.
Oh my God.
Even before we passed the trans refuge law, the walls were shrinking for our community. Now that Trump is back in office, now that his national fascist project is being implemented with no regard for humans, for human consequences, especially for trans kids.
It's abuse to do
and
to children
adults,
or
we
not
are
allow
more at
children to
risk
do.
than we have ever been. Today, this action we are discussing is about our kids. Trans kids and their parents are among the most vulnerable populations in America. Many of these families, as you heard, moved to Minnesota specifically because we promised to protect their health care. And I want to be clear to those families, your health care is still protected in Minnesota. Children's Minnesota is making a heartbreaking decision to pause this care. I know it is heartbreaking for the providers at Children's, and I know it is doubly so for patients. It is painful to see this happen. It is painful to see the lengths the Trump administration will go to destroy our small community. Children's has declared this pause to be temporary, and I fully expect that they will return to their full slate of gender-affirming care in 60 to 90 days, as they have suggested. This care is still legal in Minnesota, and Minnesota's gender-affirming care healthcare providers must continue to offer it to all trans and non-binary patients. Our lives depend on it. Trans and non-binary kids and adults in Minnesota, all across the United States, deserve healthcare providers who will go all the way to the mat for them. We must fight all the way to the end for trans kids. We cannot continue to be sacrificed for the greater good until our community is simply gone. So we need you all to stand for us. We understand the difficulty. We understand the despairing situation and the risks. We understand every other 5-alarm fire that is taking place in this nation right now. But we still need you to stand for us as well. This ruthless, uncaring, dehumanizing administration that we are living under is doing this work to everyone who is different. And that includes our most vulnerable trans and non-binary kids. And I thank you for coming here. I thank you for listening. I thank you for responding in the way that we need you to, which is to protect trans kids. With that, we'll take some questions.
Yeah, okay. Who's next? Who's going to embarrass themselves next? I can't hear any of the... Hold on, let me turn that up. Somebody talking in there? Oh, I can't even listen to these guys. Yucked out. I'm yucked out. Yuck.
All right.
You guys, it's so dirty. Okay, so let's go and look at the Book of Giants. It's one of the Dead Sea Scrolls. You guys have heard of it, right? You guys have this. No, we're not listening to that. There's like, here is this. This is actually a good version, but he's got a weird voice on it. But we'll listen to this version unless they have another 15 minutes. Like, here we go. I don't know what this one is. Let me see.
Many of the women were made pregnant.
Let's do that.
The Book of Giants, the reconstruction based on biblical texts. The Book of Giants, according to the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea fragments of the Book of Giants need to be reconstructed in order to achieve a more or less comprehensible narrative.
Actually, you know what? I'm actually going to go to the other one because it's more interesting. I like, you know what? It's growing on me. It's got sound effects. I hope you enjoy it. Listen to this story. And then you tell me it ain't human. I'm just saying, you know, I'm telling you guys, I'm warning everybody. I'm a voice crying out in the
A
wilderness.
narrative of the fragmentary Book of Giants found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Narrated by Matthew Schmitz. The fallen angels knew the secrets of all things. At this time, sin was great on the earth. The wicked angels killed many people and begot giants with mortal women. The the wicked angels consumed everything that the earth produced, the great fish, the birds in the sky, all the fruit of the earth, all kinds of grain, the fruit of the trees, even beasts and reptiles they committed sin against. All the creeping things of the earth they observed and abused. They performed every harsh deed with harsh utterance upon male and female creations, and upon humanity itself. The 200 angels seized 200 donkeys, 200 asses, 200 sheep and rams of the flock, 200 goats, 200 beasts of the field from every animal and from every bird, for experiments in breeding with humans and all types of miscegenation. From these deeds, monsters were created and flourished across the earth. The monsters sought out flesh, which would be destroyed or perverted. Monsters and giants would arise who were lacking in true knowledge, because they were abominations. In the meantime, the earth grew ever more corrupt, and the giants more mighty. They considered trying to persuade other angels to come upon the earth, otherwise their tyranny might ultimately perish and die. All the time they were causing great corruption in the earth. If this goal did not suffice to perpetuate them, they thought they would be finally destroyed. The fallen ones defiled all creation and begot giants and monstrous creatures and corrupted all the earth, which was defiled by bloodshedding at the hands of the giants. But this did not suffice them, and they were seeking constantly to devour and destroy many more. The monsters attacked all creation. The giant named Mawe then had a dire vision. In his dream, a great tablet upon which was inscribed several names was immersed in water. When the tablet emerged from the water, only 3 names remained of the generation of Adam. Mawe reported his dream to the other giants, wherein he described that men drenched the tablet in water so that it was covered. It was then lifted out, and all the inscriptions but 3 had vanished. The dream was then discussed among them.
"This vision is cause for cursing and sorrow,"
said the group.
"I,"
said Mawe,
"am the one who will be blamed most of the whole group, of those cast down out of heaven, and I shall have to go to hear the spirits of the slain complaining about their killers, and crying out that we shall all die together, and be made an end of. When I am sleeping and dreaming, bread and shelter will be denied me."
So, troubled with this vision, the monsters entered into the gathering of the giants. Then Oya spoke, without trembling, to Mawe.
"Who showed you all this vision, my brother?" "Barakel, my father, was with me as corroborator, and it seemed he experienced the same vision."
But before Mawe had finished telling what he had seen in his dream, Oya said to him,
"Now I have heard wonders. If a barren woman gives birth, that would be an equal wonder."
Thereupon Oya said to Haya,
"Are we to be destroyed upon this earth?"
When they had finished discussing the dreams, both Oya and Haya wept greatly before the assembled giants and monsters.
"Use your strength,"
the group counseled. Then Oya said to Haya,
"This doom is not for us, but for wicked Azazel, for he showed the most corruption to humanity. They surely will not let all their beloved creations be neglected. We are not to be cast down. You, all of you, have strength and can resist."
The giants, after a moment of contemplating this, however, realized that fighting heaven is futile. The giant who is named Gilgamesh stepped forward to speak.
"I am a giant, and by my mighty strength in my arm, I can vanquish anyone who is mortal. I have made war with the mortals in the past, but I am not now able to stand against my opponents who reside in heaven and dwell in holy places. And not only this, but they are in fact stronger than I am. The day of the ravening wild beasts has come, as has that of the wild man, as I am known.
Then Oya said to him,
I have been forced to have a dream. The sleep of my eyes vanquished so that I could see a vision. Now I know that on the field of battle we cannot win. Gilgamesh, take heed of these words.
Oya then began to describe his vision.
I saw a tree uprooted except for 3 of its roots. While I was, as it were, watching, some beings moved all the roots into this garden, but not the 3. This dream,
continued Oya,
concerns the death of our souls and those of Gilgamesh and all his companions. However, Gilgamesh said to me that all the forebodings concerned only the rulers of the earth, the temporal, powerful ones, whom the leader of the good angels has cursed.
The giants were glad at his words. Then Oya turned and left the assembly. After this, 2 other giants had visions. They were unable to sleep, and they came to their comrades and told their dreams to the assembly of monsters. They reported that in their dream they seemed to be observing a garden, where those who tended the garden were watering 200 trees, and large shoots came out of their roots. Suddenly, the garden erupted with blazing fire, so that the garden was destroyed and all the water evaporated. After this, they went to the other giants to tell them of their dreams. Decidedly, the giant said,
Let us seek out Enoch, the noted scribe, and he will interpret for us the dream.
Thereupon, Oya declared to the giants,
I too this night had another dream, and behold, the ruler of heaven came down to earth and made an end of us. Such is the ending of my dream.
Upon hearing this, all the monsters and giants grew afraid and called Maui the Titan. He came to meet the giants who pleaded with him and sent him to Enoch the scribe. The giants said to him,
Go to Enoch, so that he may speak to you, and then return to let us know you have heard his voice.
Oya spoke to Maui and said to him,
Enoch will listen and interpret the dreams, and tell us how long we giants have to live and rule on earth.
Maui then mounted up in the air as if upon strong winds, using his hands like eagle's wings. He left behind the inhabited world and passed over the great desert of desolation. Enoch saw him and hailed him. Maui told Enoch of his mission and said to him that he would speak with him. Flying here and there, Enoch came a second time to Maui, after he, Enoch, had warned Maui about flying too near the sun. Maui spoke to Enoch and said that the giants and all the monsters of the earth await his words.
If the fall of the giants and wicked angels has been carried out by divine providence from their days of heavenly glory, can you at least assure us that the number of our days spent doing harm will be added to our lives? We wish to know the meaning of the 200 trees that came down from heaven.
The scribe, Enoch, gave Maui a copy of another tablet that bore his, Enoch's, own handwriting. The writing on the tablet said, In the name of the great and holy God, this message is sent to Semyaza and all his companions. Let it be known to you, the giants and monsters, that you will not escape judgment for all the things that you have done, and that your wives, their sons, and the wives of their sons will not escape, and that by your licentiousness on the earth there has been visited upon you a heavenly judgment. The land is crying out and complaining about you and the deeds of your children and about the harm you have done to it. Until the heavenly angel Raphael arrives, behold, destruction is coming by a great flood, which will destroy all living things, whatever is in the deserts and the seas. The meaning of the dreams is by way of a judgment for all your evil. But if you now loosen the bonds binding you to evil and pray for forgiveness, you may yet be saved. Here, Enoch recounts his own vision as described in the Book of Enoch. This is where the Dead Sea Scrolls version of the Book of Giants abruptly ends. It is speculated and stated in numerous texts and oral traditions that several giants somehow survived the Great Flood to walk among the peoples of Earth once more.
Doo-doo-doo. Scary, huh? No, just kidding. There's more to these stories. I haven't really. It's been a long time since I've listened to the Epic of Gilgamesh. Maybe we should revisit that one soon. Maybe next week. Maybe that might be fun. In the meantime, if you want, go check it out. The Epic of Gilgamesh. It's very interesting. Obviously, take it with a grain of salt because it's being written by Gilgamesh, so they say, or his scribes, and that's what they say. That that it's basically they thought was not something that was real, but it's something that's been preserved, and it's quite an interesting story. Definitely listen to it. It's interesting. Anyways, but they're demons. Everybody's demon. They're just a bunch of demons. They're experimenting on kids, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's what he was just talking about that. Just talking about that. You know how these dark angels came and they started experimenting with people and with animals in unnatural ways and creating beasts. Okay? It was written thousands and thousands of years ago. So, if you didn't know it was out there, tell your friends. Anyways, I think that's going to be all. I had a video, but I forgot to play it, so I'll save it for another day. Not a big deal. You guys have a good night. Let me see. Do I have an outro? Let's see. We'll play this one. I'll play that one. We'll play this one.
Praise God from heaven, praise Him from the mountaintops. Hallelujah, praise Him, all you His angels. Praise Him, all you His warriors. Praise Him, sun and moon. Praise Him, your morning stars. Hallelujah, praise Him, high heaven. Praise Him, heavenly rain clouds. Praise, or let them praise the name of God.
He spoke the word, and there they were. He set them in place from all time to eternity. He gave me His order, and that's it.
Praise God from earth. You see dragons, you fathomless ocean deeps. Fire and hail, snow and ice, hurricanes obeying His orders. Mountains and all hills, apple orchards and cedar forests, wild beasts and herds of cattle, snakes and birds in flight. Hallelujah! Earth's kings and all races, leaders and important people, robust men and women in their prime, and yes, graybeards and little children.
Let them praise the name of God. It's the only name worth praising. His radiance exceeds anything in earth and sky. He's built a monument. Very own people